Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele ilezwe letu, nabantu balo, umusele ukulungu kwipondo letu, nkosi sikelele I Afrika, qina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, unike ikolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Please be seated. Order, I have to announce that due to the resignation of Mr. R.B. Lintet, a vacancy has occurred in the representation of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This vacancy has since been filled by the nomination of Mr. T.A. Simmers with effect from 12 June 2017. Mr. Simmers was sworn in the Speaker's Chambers on 12 June 2017. Congratulations, Mr. Simmers. Order. I would also like to request all members to rise and observe a moment of silence for the victims of the various recent natural disasters in the Western Cape. Thank you. You may be seated. I would also like to welcome on the Centre Gallery a delegation from the Ethiopian Federal Parliament and the Oromia Regional Parliament present in the House today. Most welcome here. Order, we then proceed with the order paper. Will there be precedence given to before you do it? Honourable Wale?
Yes, before I ask that we rule not 198, notwithstanding that precedence be given to the subject for discussion, may I just say that the Premier and the majority of the Cabinet are unfortunately absent today because they are accompanying the President at the scene of the disaster in the Southern Cape.
Thank you. Honourable Bali, did you give precedence as well? Did you move that?
That notwithstanding Rule 198, precedence be given to the subject for discussion, please.
No objection to the precedence being given? We will then proceed with the subject with the matter of public importance first. Honourable Gaka, do you want to address me?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on the 6th of June, we submitted a letter dated the 6th of June, or a correspondence to your office regarding an urgent motion of no confidence that we were expecting to be dealt today. I think it was submitted on the 9th of June to your office. As per the procedure, we were expecting your office to interact with us as an ANC, having submitted that motion. And our surprise is that we don't see that as part of the order paper today, of which it was supposed to be the day of engagement around that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Magaka. You've made your point. The matter was discussed in the Programming Authority with the Chief Whip was present, and the matter has been programmed on the order paper, not on top, but it stands on the order paper as per the rules, and it may be accelerated to be on top at some stage. So it's still on, it is on the order paper as far as I'm concerned. Honourable Chief Whip, you want to, fine. Thank you very much. Honourable Magaka.
Can I just get a clarity, Chair? Sorry, Deputy Speaker. Why is it not being prioritized for today or for this sitting?
Yes.
Because procedurally and traditionally we used to get a correspondence from your office indicating on the way forward immediately 2 or 3 days after we have submitted a motion of any motion.
Honourable Magaka, the only rule where the Speaker can interfere in the programme of Parliament is when it comes to a motion for urgent public importance. And this is not a motion for urgent public importance, this is a normal motion asking for a debate of no confidence. So it's dealt with as a normal motion, gets programmed on the order paper, and then the programming authority decides when they want to debate it. So if there's not been communication to you about the outcome, then certainly I can follow that up. But the chief whip, your chief whip was in the programming authority where it was discussed. So there's a difference between a normal motion like this one and a subject for discussion or a matter of urgent public importance. That's dealt differently. The last one, a matter of urgent public importance in terms of the rules, the Speaker has the power and must determine whether she allows it or not. This one is different. The Speaker has no role to play in this one. Unlike National Assembly, where the National Assembly rules have been changed, where the onus is on the Speaker to determine yes or no. Our situation has not been changed, it's still the old traditional rules. So if there is a need to change it, certainly that can be discussed in the Rules Committee. But at the moment, as it stands, the onus is on the Programme Authority to determine when it will be brought to the order paper. That is the factual situation. Honourable Olivier, do you want to go further?
Yes, please, Speaker. I'm not too sure, or maybe I'm going to ask you to clarify to us the measure that has been used to determine the public importance of a motion. Because to us, this is a motion for public importance. And hence, Chair, maybe you should clarify to us
Yes,
how
I will.
to measure and who is measuring that public importance, because we view this as a major public importance in my view and should have been above the line, not below the line.
Yes, now I understand your point. A matter of public importance or a matter of urgent public importance is simply an opportunity to have a debate. There's no decision afterwards taken. So it would be unwise to propose a debate on a motion of no confidence as a matter of public importance, because there won't be a decision taken afterwards. So this motion was introduced or was tabled in terms of the normal rules applicable to motions. And therefore, the onus is not on the Speaker, but the onus is on the Programming Authority. So that may certainly be taken up again in the Programming Authority. That's the technical legal position regarding the motion versus the matter for public importance. Can we proceed with the motion? Honourable Dugmore.
Deputy Speaker, I wonder if you just allow me to address you. The issue is, as Honourable Magaka has pointed out, and you've confirmed that on the order paper, the motion of no confidence appears. I think the problem that we're having is that, and I wanted to request in terms of what options are available to yourself as the Deputy Speaker in the absence of the Speaker, because clearly the Programming Committee, which is led by the majority party, can essentially frustrate any time or date actually allocated to this motion. So it stands on the order paper, but this House and the Leader of the Opposition have got no comfort from simply the publication of this. So what I would like to ask you, given the fact that the DA dominates that party, it's clearly that they don't have any interest in allowing even their own members to express their view as to whether the Premier should continue as the Premier, because clearly that's a very serious matter and why the Honourable Member has tabled this. So we now have a situation with no date. It's simply on the order paper. So the issue is, if there is continued reticence or refusal by the DA to allow a democratic debate on this matter, surely you as the Speaker could express a concern of that, because effectively what is happening, we are being muzzled in terms of an unacceptable situation where we understand the Premier is not allowed to attend party meetings, but the very party that nominated her to this position still wants to keep her there. So this for us is an untenable situation for governance.
Yes, I hear what the honourable member says. Can I put it this way? The onus always is on the governing party whether to allow or not to allow a motion of no confidence. That's how it works in the Westminster system. But having said that, it's also almost an onus or a compulsion on the governing party not to refuse for frivolous reasons. If I can refer you to Erskine and May, which is the Bible on parliamentary procedure in the Westminster system, 24th edition, page 384. There's interesting paragraphs about that, and certainly the governing party has the powers not to allow it, but by convention they would have to find good reason not to allow it. I wouldn't go further than that. So the programming authority is the final authority, but certainly if there's a clear-cut case of a party stalling and not allowing debates to happen over an extended period, certainly the Speaker will play a part. That's so far I'm prepared to go at this stage. Let us proceed, and we will. Do you want to address me, Mr. Wale? Not.
Speaker, I find this really odd that we are stalling a very important debate relating to the public health of this province to do a tutorial for the opposition party with regard to the rules of this House. The fact of the matter is that what we've done is 100% in line, but unfortunately the opposition party, because they're the opposition in this province, they're not prepared to bow down to the will of the majority in this House, which is a real pity. So we will follow the rules. If necessary, we will hold a debate. We don't actually believe in their contention for the motivation for this motion and no confidence. We think it is frivolous. We are dealing with the most successful.
Order, please allow the order.
With
Allow
due
the member
respect,
time.
Deputy Speaker, they've had a chance now to disrupt proceedings, to voice their opinion against the rules. May I say that we are dealing with the most successful executive anywhere on the African continent, who by judgment of Chapter 9 institutions like the Auditor General constantly gets clean audits, is heralded around the world as an example of good governance, and now she want to have a motion. Now,
order.
the subtext, Deputy Speaker, and I'll conclude on this. The subtext is that they think that members on this side of the House are going to support their motion of no confidence. This is simply not going to happen.
Order. No, I'm not going to allow this debate on the technicalities of this will degenerate to this level. Honourable Squatcha, I will see you, then we proceed. Honourable Chacham. Honourable Chacham. Honourable Chacham, I'll see you, and then we will conclude. He's not to be seen. Then I'll see the Chief Whip if you want to address me. Then order. We will then conclude after this.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, what Honourable Wiley just said is, it's because of the will of the majority party that they will allow or not allow any motion of no confidence to be discussed. But Deputy Speaker, I think it's your responsibility to intervene in a very important issue like this, because a motion of no confidence is a Section 141 motion of no confidence in terms of our Constitution. And therefore, Deputy Speaker, it's not an ordinary motion. But what we heard Honourable Wiley already doing now, he was motivating why there's such a good executive. If he started to motivate there's such a good executive, why did he block in the programming authority with the majority of the DA a discussion of a motion of no confidence? Why is he then scared to do that? Okay. And I think, Deputy Speaker, wherever we go in South Africa, a motion of no confidence always gets allowed to be debated. Why run away from the debate and a vote on that? Why? And I really appeal to you, Deputy Speaker, to allow this debate to go forward on the motion of no confidence in the Premier and, of course, in her Cabinet.
Thank you, Honourable Ace. Obviously, we can't do it today. The ball is in the court of the programming authority, but if there's a clear-cut case of a party deliberately wanting to stall such a thing, then certainly the Speaker will play a part. Can I just say in conclusion on this one, the Constitution, in fact, refers to motions of no confidence in Section 144, but it doesn't prescribe any procedure to get it to the order paper. It simply prescribes or simply says what the consequences would be of a successful motion of no confidence. We will now proceed. Honourable Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's a pity that this particular debate of such gravity and import for the residents of this province has been led into with a little bit of rancor of the nature that it has. However, we do live in the Cape of Storms, and some people interpret this as part of being the Cape of Storms. As we know, crises are a reality in this province. We do have a lot of crises, especially as far as weather is concerned. We are used to fires, we are used to storms. That is why it is called the Cape of Storms. It's not that we are going to have crises, but how you deal with it. And today, hopefully, some of the ministers will report back to us and tell us about how the province is dealing with this particular crisis. As you all know, we were all aware that this crisis was going to be vested upon us during the course of last week. Weather warnings were very amplified in the media, and we knew the storm was coming. We had a sitting here of one of the committees in this House, and we had to adjourn early. And it was that was an important meeting with the National Police Commissioner, and we adjourned early because we knew gale force winds were coming. We knew that rain was coming. But what we didn't know was that, and we thought it was only going to come to the metro. What we didn't know was that fire was going to vest itself upon the Southern Cape in the way that it did. Today we will hear about the provincial response, about some extraordinary deeds, about volunteerism and heroism, about extraordinary community spirit, not just from within this province, but also from outside this province. All other 8 provinces and the national government came and assisted in this particular tragedy that took place in the Southern Cape. At least 2 members in this House, just to show you that is a particularly narrow, it very close to us, at least 2 members of this House lost property in that fire. And in fact, one person, Mr. Simmers, Tertius Simmers, our new member, will speak make his maiden speech, and I hope that you will give him a fair hearing in this. He also lost a house during this particular thing. Many thousands, and you know, it is extraordinary that the Honourable Member Dugmore used to be the constituency head for that part of the world. I would hope that he would vest the same level of gravitas and somberness to this tragedy and to listen and to contribute positively to try and resolve the matter instead of the sort of remarks that he's just made now. Apparently, this doesn't apply. Many thousands have been seriously affected by loss, damage, and disruption to their lives. We would like to thank all those officials and volunteers, both from inside this province and from without, the municipalities most affected and their councillors, and also the MPs and the MPLs that took time out to go and assist. I'd also like to thank the Honourable Chief Whip on the other side of the House for his understanding us having to cancel last week's sitting and the fact that we've had to realign this sitting as a result of this disaster. But I think it is understandable that with the President's visit in the Southern Cape, that they've taken the time off to go and present the situation to the President of the country.
Thank you, Member. Your
so we hope that on this tragedy, we'll be able to build for the future.
The time has expired. Thank you. Order. The Honourable Makaleni.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I extend the ANC's heartfelt condolences to the families of the people who died as a result of the fires in and around Knysna. I would also acknowledge the bravery and selflessness of volunteers, firefighters, Bradley Richards, who succumbed to burn wounds, and all others who came to assist, also from other provinces. I must further appreciate the quick response from the national government for sending volunteers to assist during the fire disaster ordeal, and the subsequent visit of President Zuma to the affected areas of the Southern Cape. This catastrophic disaster came after a series of similar disasters elsewhere in the province, Whilst we welcome the assistance from many residents and NGOs to volunteer, we are, however, concerned of the conduct of the DA-led government departments and aligned NGOs who distributed food parcels with DA stickers to the affected people. This is a clear demonstration of a conflict of interest on the part of the DA. The separation of power in terms of the state and political parties must be observed. I am reminded by the former South African President, Thabo Mbeki. He borrowed from the novel by Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. The novel begins with the famous words, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness." I close quote. While the vulnerable people needed help, the DA chose to use this plight for their selfish interests by acting foolishly. They turned their worst of times to be DA's best times to promote DA using government resources. What a shame on you, DA-led government. Whilst it may sound noble, Premier Helen Zille and her government calls on corporate companies for donation towards the victims of the fires in the Southern Cape. The DA-led government have never done so in previous disasters, affecting mostly people in disadvantaged communities. This conduct reinforces the DA stance of treating the people of this province differently in terms of their social standing and political beliefs. It is no secret that most affected people are in the constituency of the DA this time. There are wealthy and affluent communities with very expensive private properties and other business activities. In my constituency, Deputy Chair, Deputy Speaker, imizamo yethu and masiphumelele informal settlements near Hout Bay. Recently, over 4,500 shacks were burnt and 10,000 residents were displaced and left homeless after homes were burnt down in the separate fires. Those fires left three dead and others wounded. Equally, other poor communities such as Joslovo, Kosovo, Khayelitsha surrounding informal settlement, Europe, Barcelona, Kanana, Danun, people have been left heavily affected by the storm. Yet very little is done to rescue these vulnerable people from their miseries. None of this generosity and quick reaction was ever noticed from the DA-led provincial government. Certainly, the corporate companies never responded with such vigor and commitment they have just demonstrated over the past week. It is reported that, for example, Standard Bank donated 10,000 as compared to the 10 million in Nasla. This 10,000 was donated in the Hout Bay fires. We would like to see the 10 million coming to the people of imizamo yethu as well. It is unprecedented for the Western Cape government to allocate 75 million to deal with the consequences of Knysna fires. Damage caused by recent storms and drought relief. It is said the majority of these funds will go toward repairing schools, hospitals, road-related infrastructure damages, emergency humanitarian support disaster, management coordination and drought assistance. However, the how part of the prioritization of communities is unknown, but judging from the previous occurrences, nothing will go to the pure communities. My colleagues will demonstrate how Knysna residents have been treated as the better residents of this province. This prompted a widespread cry from other communities and in social media as to why Knysna is treated differently and how resources are pumped there. This prompted the Khayelitsha Development Forum to report and complain and raise a concern with Minister Jeff Radebe to the fact that why, when the disaster of this nature and magnitude around Khayelitsha, both the provincial government and the corporate companies have never came to their assistance in the way they have done this time around. It is clear now whose interest the DA-led government have in their hearts. They continue to perpetuate the notion of the haves and the have-nots. I can only come to the conclusion that it is in their genes and always put in the interest of the affluent and rich over the poor and the marginalized community. It does not take a rocket scientist to know that the DA government does not care about the plight of the poor people. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, perhaps I must make a point that a standardized format must be introduced as how different spheres of government ought to respond in situations of this nature.
The Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, this is definitely not a political debate. We must learn from the people of this country who assisted one another, that was there for one another, irrespective of color, irrespective of party lines. Irrespective of party lines, people all work together. And especially in Eisner, where people opened their homes for people that they didn't even know. People deposited money in bank accounts, gave food. When I spoke to people, they phoned me and I directed them to deposit money into bank accounts of the municipality and so on. So that is our job today. This is public importance. And all that the ANC can do is criticize. I want to thank all three spheres of government for the work they've done to help our people. All three spheres of government. The national, provincial and local government. And we must.
Order.
You see, Speaker, what the people have shown is together we can bring about change. Together we can bring about change. And I want to say, Speaker, that a lot of homes were burned down, a lot of people lost their lives, and all we do is politicking. All we do is criticizing. Can't we in this house give leadership and show them how we can work together to bring about change? Deputy Speaker, the important thing is, lives were lost, properties were lost, and people are grieving. And they're looking at this provincial government to give guidance and direction. They're looking at national government to give guidance and direction. They're looking at local government to give guidance and direction. Can we not for once give guidance and direction and give people some hope? Deputy Speaker, it's pitiful and shameful to hear from this side of the House criticizing and not contributing to this debate.
Order.
Deputy Speaker.
Remember, your time unfortunately has expired already. Honourable Minister Fritz.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, honourable members of Parliament, members of this House, our distinguished guests, and I see they're gone, residents of the Western Cape, good afternoon. It is an absolute pity, Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is an absolute pity that this debate is reduced to one particular geographic area in Mitchell's Plain, Khayelitsha, and the other one in Hout Bay, and that we have emphasized all the time, and we have said that this debate today focuses on the people affected on the Cape Flats by the storm, and all, not only Cape Flats, other people's roofs also blew off. So the storm in the Cape and the wind and the kind of gale force wind that happened not only in Eisner, it took the whole air garden route up from the bottom right up to Platinum Bay, past B2. And it's so unfortunate that it's always reduced to this little, them and us. In fact, not one of these members visited the areas, so I don't know how from what space and what basis are they talking. Deputy Speaker, with the aftermath of the storm and fires, and I say storm and fires, it is critical that we acknowledge the devastation that has been caused in the lives of thousands of people. In many cases, people, families, entire communities have to pick up the pieces, and with them having to rebuild their lives from scratch. And I wonder and I wish, and I have unfortunately the job to go and face people who is just after that, and to experience the trauma of those people, and then we can sit here and make absolute jokes about the plight of people. Yes, we are laughing about it. And yes, Speaker, all communities, and our emphasis is all communities, rich and poor, were affected by this. You must go to white location and come back to me and come tell me. And you don't need to go to London, to Belpattinga to tell you what is a colonial and what is not a colonial.
There's order. There's too much dialogue going on with the minister.
Speaker.
Minister, speak through the chair.
Speaker, because my department always put the value and sanctity of human life first, we have been active on the ground from the outset, working as part of a broad team. And I want to say to Honorable Makaleni, it is, Honorable Speaker, it is one group, a small group of youth who collected money, and they happened to be there, and they put posters, and that was unfortunate. And we must say it. And there's a small group. That's not government money. That's a small group of their people who got money together, bought stuff, and they put little stickers on. And it's unfortunate in the situation, but that's not government money. I want to emphasize there's no government money involved, and I want to make the point. Deputy Speaker, because
Order.
we will continue, and it was so interesting, Deputy Speaker, to see how all three spheres of government work together on the ground. I can't hear myself.
Honourable Davids, please calm down.
How all three spheres of government work together, and how they, from local government, together with provincial government, together with national government, really came together and put aside their little nonsense differences and got to what is at hand to sort the thing. It's only in this house where all this little petty nonsense come. With specific reference to the fires in the garden route, it is estimated that in excess of 400 homes and 170 informal housing structures have been destroyed. And yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we also are deeply cognizant that both poor and the vulnerable and members of the better and the more wealthy class are affected by this. That is so. Ons kan nie weghardloop daarvan nie. En we can't for convenience create a narrative that talks just about the poor or just about the rich. So this hypocrisy of the ANC must really come to a damn end. This, and then the president ran to the same place that they just complained about. They just complained. They're a bunch of hypocrites. That's what you are. From the outset. From the outset, my department consisted and insisted, Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Order.
that in partnership with our NGO partners.
Minister, just one
Order.
second. Is there a
Order.
point of order or question? Honourable Holyfield?
It's a point of order, Deputy Speaker. Is it parliamentary for the MEC to call us, what did it call? A bunch of hypocrites.
I did hear that. I wasn't sure whether the minister referred to
must
specific
apologise.
members in the House. Minister?
I said, generally go visit, the same president go visit, and then he comes here, and then there's other bunch sit here, and they also.
Okay,
you know.
if it was a order.
I don't know where the bunch starts.
Please come to order. If it was a reference to members of the House, that would have been unparliamentary.
I will
but
withdraw.
I
I
accept.
will. They so.
Thank you.
But Nijana looks so beautiful. How can I not withdraw it today? I'd say really look. No, you don't need to apologize. So I want to just emphasize the role of all sectors and all formations. The department has been leading all humanitarian efforts in partnership with NGOs and partners, the South African Security Agency, which is SASA, doing absolutely good work, Mr. I just want to make that point. Our official led by Mr. Saul, Caesar Sauls, at the head office, and Mr. Susana in the local office down in the Garden Eden route, really work around the clock to distribute the donations of clothing, blankets, food, items that have been streaming in. Deputy Speaker, the generosity from people, some even as far as our neighboring borders as Namibia, has been overwhelming to observe. In fact, I've seen in a long time humanity emerging and really moving far above this little petty nonsense that we are hearing in many places. And in fact, one partner, which they call the, monopoly, white monopoly capital, which they were told by Bell Pottinger from London, a colonial company to call that. They can't even think for themselves. That DHL delivered 30 tons of donations to, and this is really immense. Start thinking for yourself. White monopoly capital tell you what to say. Our services haven't ended there. In addition to relief services, our dedicated team of 11 social workers from the Eden Karoo Regional Office and specifically the Knysna local office have provided trauma counseling and debriefing to all our residents in the area. All our residents, white, black, poor, rich, amal. Provincial Treasury, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the short-term period has allocated an additional 5 million, and Minister Mayor will speak extensively about that, to my department to assist Mr. Oliver, keep your mouth, with relief of disaster.
Order, Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Olivier and some other members as well on the ANC side. There's too much talk going on across the floor to the Minister, and I can't hear the Minister speaking. Please come to order.
And so what we hope to launch in the next 2 weeks, possibly the next 2 weeks, Deputy Speaker, we hope to launch a mass trauma counseling with NGO partners in all areas. I want to emphasize, all areas where people can access and get trauma counseling, and so that we can have a look at the work. Speaker, I want to take a moment and really thank my social work staff from the Knysna office. They truly made sacrifices, and to make sure that, they, in their own case, 5 of my social workers, they were affected by those houses. 5 of them were affected. One's house was burned down, but they made sure they are on duty to assist others. I also want to, during this month of June, I want to really make a point about the number of firefighters, young men and women, who came from all of South Africa, all provinces, and they came to really fight that fire. And in one instance, one young man lost his life, another man burned badly. And I think today, in the spirit of Youth Month, I want to salute them and say to them, keep up the good work. This province and this government in this province is behind you, and always be public-spirited, like what we have seen displayed within the whole Eden and the Cape Flats area. I thank you.
Thank you. Order, order. Honourable Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you for this opportunity to take part in this debate. I would first like to start by thanking the disaster relief workers that have worked tirelessly over the past 8 days, tackling the freak storm across the Western Cape and devastating fires that followed, in particular in the Eden district. For much of last week, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Knysna and other surrounding areas they were engulfed in fires that saw the evacuation of at least 10,000 residents, many of whom lost everything. This was, according to the disaster management officials, the biggest disaster rescue operation in the history of South Africa. The fires spanned at least 100 kilometers and were bravely fought by a team of 1,106 firefighters from the province and elsewhere. We are most grateful that the situation has now been contained, and moving forward, the job will be to rebuild and restore Knysna and the surrounding region. What we saw in the last week was an unprecedented natural disaster that required an unprecedented response. Honourable Deputy Speaker, our efforts began with the proactive one-day closure of all schools in the province on Wednesday, the 7th of June, ahead of the Cape Storm. This freed up the roads to a large extent so that the emergency services could operate without unnecessary hindrance. It proved to be the most important decision, also bearing in mind that around 144 schools in the province were also damaged in the storm. The Disaster Management Centre was also proactively activated on Tuesday, the 6th of June, and the team there did a sterling job in coordinating relief efforts across the entire Western Cape. Tragically, 12 people lost their lives as a result of the disaster, Honourable Deputy Speaker, 5 people in the Cape Metro and 7 in the Knysna area, including a firefighter. Our thoughts are with their families, friends and colleagues. Honourable Deputy Speaker, yesterday, the Western Cape Cabinet, under the leadership of Alan Zille, took the initiative to move the scheduled Western Cape Cabinet meeting from Cape Town to Knysna, where the decision was taken to reprioritize 75,000 rand towards the rest. A million, I apologize, 75 million across addressing damage caused by the storm and rebuilding the fire-ravaged town of Knysna and the surrounding areas, and even outside the Eden area. This was to deal with many of these issues across the whole of the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, as members of this House will know, we have also declared the whole of the province a disaster area, and so we had to respond in a very comprehensive manner yesterday. We are also grateful for the immense contribution from the private sector. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, given the scale and the magnitude and the depth of this crisis, we are particularly looking at 5 sources of funding: one from the National Management Disaster Centre, the private companies, the insurance industries, the Western Cape government, and also the corporate banks. We also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, have received generous support, has been provided by many companies: Pick n Pay, Spur, Clicks, Vodacom, Cell C, and many other corporate companies. The allocation of 75 million rand will be to assist the recent disasters across the province, and we have taken a decision to invoke Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act, which allows the MEC of Finance to make emergency funding immediately available, because we cannot wait for the adjustment budget later this year. So the province has also approached the National Disaster Management Centre, and we're particularly happy that Minister Des van Rooyen was also present at our cabinet meeting yesterday, because he is responsible for the National Disaster Management Centre. In addition, both the Plettenberg Bay municipality as well as Knysna has already taken the decisions to declare it as a local disaster, and the Western Cape Cabinet has yesterday endorsed that decision, which will allow us to facilitate our application to the National Disaster Management Centre. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the allocation for 75 million rand will be implemented as follows. Transport and Public Works will receive 5 million rand to deal with the road-related infrastructure damages, and an additional 800,000 rand for the transport costs of the emergency evacuations. 15 million rand for school infrastructure as a result of the adverse weather conditions and the fires. The 2017 main budget made substantive funding available for education and maintenance. 1.2 million rand for health infrastructure as a result of the storm all over the Western Cape and the fire. And in addition, Honourable Deputy Speaker, 15 million rand will be made available for the department to deal with the cost associated with the Swartland Hospital, particularly the prefabricated units, replacement linen and technology. As members of this House will know, in March, that whole hospital was completely burned down. Investigations are still continue in that particular regard. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in terms of human settlements, because our primary concern is that people have lost property, and for that we have now made available yesterday 7.5 million rand to deal with the displacement of people due to the adverse weather conditions and fires, also in Cape Town, and the fires in Eden, and particularly also focusing on the rural areas. I'm particularly happy yesterday, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that it was reported in the Cabinet that the resettlement of the beneficiaries is now taking priority, and that our colleague, the LOGB Minister Madikizela, has already profiled all the beneficiaries that needs to be relocated in that particular area. 5 million rand, as Minister Fritz has indicated, will go for the Department of Social Development for emergency humanitarian support and the related expenditure to deal with the most vulnerable. And I'm very happy that he has also informed now the House about the extensive trauma support that he will lend to the people in that particular area. He has already instructed his department to transfer some social workers to deal with the trauma, and they will be there on site next Wednesday. The Department of Local Government, 15 million rand for disaster management coordination, drought assistance and the related infrastructure at municipalities. You can imagine the scale of this magnitude. When you have no water, no sanitation, it's very important that we have pump systems also to pump up all these necessary assistance that is required in dealing with both the sanitation requirements and the water requirements. Also, because this is lastly also an agricultural province, Honourable Deputy Speaker, 5.5 million rand has been made available to mitigate the impact on natural and biological disasters on the agricultural sector. 3 million rand for environmental affairs, particularly for Cape Nature, as well as for working on fire. Also, we've made 2 million rand available for community safety to deal with the associated requirements in terms of security. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are of course very grateful for the rain and the snow that we have now received. The Western Cape is still an official disaster area relating to the ongoing drought afflicting the entire province. Every drop of rain is precious. Sadly, while the storm provided some slight relief, the change of our dams have not been much. The problem was that the gale force winds blew the water away from the catchment areas. The result is that the dam levels in the Western Cape have increased on average 2% over the last 8 days. Currently, the average dam levels are 20% in the Western Cape. The good news is that this is now our winter rainfall season, and the forecast for more rain is rosy indeed, with some good rain predicted. In addition, we have seen our mountains covered in snow, always a good sign for water security from springtime when the thaw sets in. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the immediate reality, however, is that the Western Cape remains a disaster area in terms of the drought. So all water-saving measures remain in place, including water restrictions. We urge the public to continue to use water sparingly as possible over the next few months. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the bulk of this issue in terms of water security was also recently discussed, well attended by members of this cabinet and the national and the provincial and also the local communities, business communities and the farming communities. We recently had, by the National Department in this government, hosted a drought in the water and sanitation in Daba, and the outcomes of that investigations and the research will certainly feed into our operational action plans in this particular regard. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, instead, our water challenges will not go away. Instead, they will only increase in the years to come. The main reasons are quite simple. Rapidly expanding population growth and the economy must grow in leading to an ever-increased demand for resources. The second is very important, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We need radical behavioural change. When it comes to managing our water resources in this province, we cannot continue along the same route we have been doing to date. The final matter is instead perhaps a warning to those who think we can continue to delay vital planning and implementation processes. The answer is we cannot. We cannot afford to have national government representatives in March this year when our dam levels were only about 30% on average, stating publicly there is no crisis in the Western Cape. No, we cannot be told that critical projects are delayed due to bad management or lack of funding or often simultaneously bad planning.
Wag maar, minister, die tyd is ongelukkig verstreke. Wil jy nog 'n laaste sin klaarmaak?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, maybe on behalf of this government and the cabinet to express our deep thanks and appreciation for all the people. As my colleague, the Minister Fritz has indicated, we had good cooperation from the national government, from the different provincial agencies, law enforcement agencies, and all the municipalities in this regard, and the thousands of volunteers and people from all over South Africa, all firefighters from all the 9 provinces. We want to thank them, and please put on record our thanks and appreciation for their assistance.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Mr. Janchi?
Did you say Minister Janchi?
Not quite.
Baie dankie aan die younger speaker. For all die 1 week all seasons elements. The events of the last week brought much needed hope, relief, as well as despair and hardship to many communities. In 1 week, we got rain, snow, fires, storms, and lightning. Don't forget about the drought. The past week's event should make us all appreciate the devastating effects of climate change, a phenomenon that we should all be planning for. No longer can we plan for fires only in the festive season. Knysna is a case in point. Climate change means what used to be seasonal is no longer seasonal. We take this opportunity to repeat our condolences to all the communities and families of the deceased. If the DA had its own way, it would blame the floods and fires on the ANC. It would say it manufactured in Lutulia House. That's what they would say if they had their own way. They would accuse Mantashe correctly for this, of having brought rain and brought fires. if they had their way. The events of the past weeks have brought some painful memories. The behavior and actions of the DA consistently remind us of what my colleague referred to, the two nations in one narrative, so accurately highlighted by the former president, that you have got in the same country one nation that is white, wealthy, with proper wealth standard services, and on the other side, another which is predominantly black, living in abject poverty and unserviced. This reality has been brought back to us. Under the DA government, this has been perfected. Within the same province, within the same cities in the province, two types of services and responses to challenges are at play. The DA-run government regards and value property more than people's lives. The DA template in the Western Cape, let me share that with you. We now know the DA template for disasters in this province. Despite the professional work done by officials of many of the departments, the DA government has two different types of responses to any disasters in the province and in any municipality. And listen to this. Any fires and floods affecting whites, wealthy, there is a tangible and quick action. It is nice now, but not long ago, you had fires threatening the property of the wealthy near Table Mountain and surrounds, and the list goes on, and they acted quickly. They respond quickly with tangible actions. When fires and floods affect the poor and unserviced, they either blame Pretoria or do very minimal intervention. This is a template of the DA in the Western Cape in response to disasters. That's it. Must be put as it is. So what does this template mean? The DA is not following disasters, Deputy Speaker.
Order.
They are interested and take action on disasters that threaten the lives and property of the wealthy. Here are a few examples. Listen to this. In January 2013, devastating fires at the BM section in Khayelitsha destroyed the entire community. Today, 4 years later, they are still there in temporary structures. Nothing has happened. This is a fact. This is not a fiction. They remain trapped in those structures.
Order. Honourable member, your own members are making a noise. I can't hear you.
No banks, no insurance company, not even Pick and Pay, who has workers staying in BM section who lost everything, did anything. But when you go to Knysna, this is what Pick and Pay would say. The Knysna mayor on ENCA said, I met with Susan Ackerman of Pick and Pay, an Israeli ambassador. They said, whatever I ask for, consider it done. That's nice now. Daai kan hulle nie doen in Khayelitsha, daai kan hulle doen in Hout Bay, daai kan hulle doen nêrens en waar mense se lewe betrokke is. That's the DA for you. That's the DA. The banks have poured over 20 million. Vir die rykes help stroom in. Vir die rykes help stroom in. Vir die armes, wat kry hulle? They get bags of sands. That's what they get. They get blankets. They get food parcels. That's what they do. This is a template of the DA in the Western Cape. If ever you never understood it, this is it today.
Order.
Who is doing this? The best run provincial government, as they would like to call themselves. They are the ones who do this, the DA run government. I want to take this opportunity Also to say to ABSA, thank you for 13 million rand, but shame on you. To say to FNB, thank you for the 10 million, but shame on you. To Santam with your 1 million, to Outsurance, to Old Mutual, to Discovery, to Pick and Pay, to Momentum. Julle het vir Neisner gehelp, maar julle kan nie vir die armes help nie. Thank you for this, but shame on you. Because for this disaster in Neisner, the 75 million that were being told.
Order, Honourable Member. Honourable Joseph, that is not parliamentary. If you refer to a member, you must please withdraw that.
And apologize, please.
Order.
I'm sorry, Deputy Speaker.
You may continue.
I'm sorry. My apology, Deputy Speaker.
Just, excuse me, just a point of order. Sorry, we didn't quite hear what Member Joseph said that warranted him withdrawing.
Order. I heard quite clearly and he withdrew it. No, we needn't repeat it. Order, please continue, Honourable Janchi.
Masiphumelele caught fire so many times. Did this cabinet visit them or even have a meeting in Masiphumelele as they did with Neisner and other wealthy areas? Did they declare any million? Nothing, zero. Yet in Neisner, 75 million, and you want us to believe that that 75 million will go somewhere else as well. Here is the DA problem. This is a DA problem. So that you can understand this template, here is their problem. Racism is in the DNA of the DA. That's what it is. This is just who they are. If you don't believe that, ask Lindiwe Mazibuko. Calm down. To the DA, Black lives don't matter. To the DA, Black lives don't matter. What matter to the DA is black votes, as Musi would do here, giving them food parcels, meal with DA stamps, because they want their vote. This matters to the DA, but their lives don't matter. That's the DA. This is a message I have for your honorable leader. That you are a black leader in a blue uniform. Jy's net 'n kits constable in die DA. Hy's 'n kits constable who blou doek. We've just seen that with this DC of Helen Zille, that you're not a leader. Honorable Mark Wiley would know what a kits constable. You just train them for 6 weeks, you can say, Nadi war too. That's what you do. And that's what Musi Maimane is to the DA. He's a kits constable and blue uniform. Let me get to the point which Honorable Ivan Mayer was raising.
Order, please come to order first before
The
you go
red.
there. Order. Please continue.
Ek weet dit is baie seer. Is eina. The DA is never ready for any disasters. For any. In May, on the 13th of May 2016, in this house, we had a debate on the drought. Let me share with you, this is what, as I concluded, I shared with them, to speak about the issue of readiness, because since then and now, they still are not ready. Because that's a challenge you put to them. As to whether in then, because he now speaks about March 2017. So I want to take him back, that there was plenty of time when we said the DA must tell us how are they doing with the effective administration of water resources, how they are going to do issue of prioritization, how they are going to reduce water demand, how they are doing and how they are managing agricultural use better than what it was happening. In May 2016, it's only now Honorable Zille, the Premier, met sy hande op die lug en hande tussen die beentjies is declaring a disaster in 2017, not even late in 2016, because they have no plan as to how they can deal with this issue of the disaster.
Order, order. Honourable Minister.
Wat beteken het? Wat beteken het?
Order, order. I cannot. Order. Honourable Janchi, I'm not sure what you were saying at that point. Is it something unparliamentary that you refer to there?
No.
Not.
The point I'm making is they are never ready for any disasters. Hulle gooi hulle hande op die lug as daar probleme is. As dit nie so is nie, dan sien julle hulle hande tussen hulle beentjies. Dis wat ek gesê het. That's not parliamentary.
I accept your word. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I accept your word that it's not
Thank you.
unparliamentary.
Thank you.
Order.
Today, we are told, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that out of about 10 cabinet ministers in this province, we are told today that the excuse of the president that the president is visiting Neisner, they are making that as an excuse for them not to be here. Because if we were to go there, many of these would not necessarily, because that disaster is very specific. The issues have been listed here and who's been allocated. There are many here who are not here, the disaster has not affected their departments. So I think you've got to be very straight with us, with the absence of this entire cabinet team that is not here today. I thank you, Honourable Deputy
Thank you,
Speaker.
member. Your time is expired. Order, order, please, order. Can we get order, please? We will now have a maiden speech by the Honourable Simmers.
Ja, ek ken die waarheid baie dankie. Deputy Speaker, honourable members, firstly, thank you for this opportunity to participate in this debate, which is a matter of public importance, but I believe has also shown the true character of the Southern Cape's community. Speaker, it is extremely difficult to talk about the effects of any disaster, whether it be natural and otherwise, and sadly I've observed this here today. It's even more difficult when you are directly affected by it. Deputy Speaker, not only did the Southern Cape disaster create unimaginable levels of fear and anxiety because there was a total communication blackout for more than 22 hours, but also, like so many, I am part of the estimated nearly 600 residents that not only lost their house, but obviously lost everything. Nearly 10,000 people residing in the areas of the Southern Cape have been displaced and has left so many of them empty, especially because this was and still remains a situation out of their control, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, as hurt as I may be, my heart goes out to those families who have lost much more than me, but have also lost a loved one during both the fires in the Southern Cape and the storms that hit the Cape. Deputy Speaker, possessions can be replaced, but 12 lives can never be replaced. Deputy Speaker, out of the negative is also positive. And we have to acknowledge the firefighting teams, numerous SANDF members, countless volunteers, and various community-based organizations from across our country who so tirelessly worked side by side to assist those affected by this disaster. I would therefore like to take this opportunity also to thank our Minister of Health and the district management team for ensuring that patients could be moved to other health facilities when some of these facilities were earmarked to be in danger of the fire. It has really been heartwarming as well, Deputy Speaker, to see how South Africans are rallying around our residents by donating various items to ensure that the basic needs of those affected are met, irrespective of their color or status. This truly proves, Deputy Speaker, that we as South Africans, irrespective of our race or social standing, can care beyond any boundaries. Die intrinsieke karakter van ons Suid-Kaapenes kan vergelyk word, Deputy Speaker, met die mythe van die Phoenixvoël. Ons sal weer opstaan, ongeag die pyn en die grootte van die taak wat voor ons staan, en ons gaan ons streek herbou tot sy volle glorie en nog baie, baie hoër hoogtes. Maar ons kan dit slegs doen in samewerking met die gemeenskapsorganisasies en die relevante departemente in ons sfere van regering. Maar weer eens, ek wil hierdie platform gebruik, Deputy Speaker, om namens hierdie huis, maar ook namens soveel individue wie nie dit kan hoor nie, baie dankie te sê aan alle rolspelers. Ongeag hoe groot of klein u dink u bydrae was, u help 'n verskil maak waar baie dit nie eens kan sien nie. Baie dankie.
Thank you, Honourable Simmers. Order, Minister Grant.
Deputy Speaker, chairpersons of the various standing committees, honourable members, let me first start off by congratulating the Honourable Simmers on his heartfelt maiden speech in this legislature today. Secondly, I would like to thank you to some, but regrettably not all, members of this House for your overwhelmingly sober and realistic contribution to this debate this afternoon. Serious events and serious consequences demand serious responses. Across society, people who have lost loved ones and had their lives ripped apart, their homes, grand and humble, destroyed, and their livelihoods interrupted, deserve to be taken seriously by society at large and by government at every level. The contribution of this House to achieving this, with two exceptions, is sincerely appreciated. It was this legislature which released all of us from our duties here so that we could be in our constituencies for the storm which hit us last week, and to remain there when the storm was compounded by raging fires. And I speak with experience, Speaker, because I've been there for 7 days. Throughout the day, throughout the night. The Western Cape has endured a frightening litany of drought, storms and fires. Some of the damage to some people's lives and to the economy has been slow,
Order,
but
Minister.
overwhelmingly like the drought.
Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Pierwinkel, is that a question or a point of order?
Mr. Grant has now on 2 occasions while he's speaking referred to the exception of 2, meaning the 2 contributions here,
I'm listening.
and also referred to sober contributions, by implication saying that the contribution came from this side is not sober, and if you're not sober, you're drunk. So what is he implying by making statements like that? That's not parliamentary, Deputy Speaker.
Pierwinkel, I cannot rule the word sober in that context unparliamentary. I think it's parliamentary.
The implication of what Mr. Grant is saying cannot be parliamentary.
Honourable Grant, I didn't construe it that way. Did you refer in any way to people that are to the opposite of sober? Did you imply that?
Deputy Speaker, definitely not.
Then you may proceed.
Some of the damage to people's lives and to the economy has been slow but overwhelming, like the drought. Some of the damage has been swift and horrifyingly powerful. The destruction is difficult to comprehend. But as the American broadcaster Darren Kagan reminds us, bad things do happen in the world, like wars, natural disasters, disease, but out of these situations always arise stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In reporting about the devastating Fort McMurray forest fire in May 2016 in Canada, a local newspaper made the point that a modern market economy often provides people with opportunities to act in isolation rather than as engaged citizens. When disaster strikes, people are often hugely energized by their own sense of agency and their capacity to bond with and to help their fellows. We are indeed better together in the Western Cape, and in Beto, we strive to be the best together.
In this spirit, Speaker, I want to table the sincere thanks of the Western Cape Government to a wide range of agencies, structures, businesses, organisations and individual people for their selfless contributions to dealing with these disasters, to overcoming the immediate threats and to making it possible for people to have hope that their lives can be reconstructed. When I sat in yesterday's cabinet briefing, and amongst our numbers, there were 3 members of the National Cabinet, all clearly committed to doing whatever was within their control to assist the Western Cape Government and the municipalities involved. This was part of that message of hope. The helicopters and the other material support made available through their offices and the offices of their colleagues were tangible signs of the same message. The country as a whole responded to what was essentially a threat to one corner of South Africa, both in the Western Cape and also the Eastern Cape. Firefighters came from across the country to work long hours in a constantly life-threatening environment. The same can be said of various emergency services and the people needed to re-establish crucial facilities such as running water and power. Municipalities freed their resources to be used where they were most needed critically. Wherever it was possible to make emergency arrangements, this was done. My own department arranged for approval of some Go George buses to be released in assisting the ferrying of displaced people from Knysna and then later on Saturday afternoon in Beto from Kranshoek, as people had to be relocated to emergency accommodation. As allowed for, we also declared an emergency procurement process to enable school repairs to be effected as quickly as possible so that learners and educators could return to their schools in safety. And the latest figures for these schools, there were 113 storm-damaged schools with estimated emergency repairs of 13.7 million and 6 fire-damaged schools with estimated costs of emergency repairs 8.3 million. Speaker, events such as these have a randomness about them which must make us pause and take stock. Equally, there can be no distinguishing levels of aid based on other than need. Less fortunate people need greater assistance sooner than those who can assist themselves. The need to redesign, replan, and redevelop, which emerges from what has happened, may well present opportunities for a vastly improved and more equitable solutions in the future. Speaker, I have a few closing points before I conclude, but it is a pity that some members of this House did not attend the Cabinet debrief in Knysna yesterday, because it was incredible to see how we worked across boundaries throughout the disaster area and the partnerships that we had between government and civil society and business, where there was overwhelming generosity and the human spirit triumphing. And then, in response to some of the debate, let me say that there were 2 members of this House who worked tirelessly at both Imizama Yetu and Masiphumelele in those disasters earlier this year. Then, I also want to say that there is a case study which is going to be written up, and that is about the private sector who came to our aid in Beto and with Edgar's stores put up a disaster distribution center that did an incredible job. And this is purely from private donations, all non-cash, which enabled Beto to assist people from as far as Tsitsikamma in the east to as far as Bracken Ridge in the west.
Order.
And it showed the incredible spirit which prevailed throughout this disaster. So, Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to repeat the thanks of Minister Mayer in respect of the Western Cape government, and I am sure of this House, to all who have helped and will continue to help in those disaster-ravaged areas in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate on this matter. We will now proceed to interpellations. The first interpellation, Honourable Joseph to Minister Meyer. Order. I see Minister Meyer.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to thank Honourable Member Joseph, our Deputy Chief Whip, for this question in terms of the interpellation. Naturally, the downgrade will impact on the cost of credit and by implication any increased burden of national debt service costs resulting from an increased debt redemption and interest repayments may have an adverse effect on the transfers from the national provinces. Honourable Deputy Speaker, you will recall that I have mentioned in this House earlier this year that our debt service cost as a country has risen from 147 billion rand over to 162 billion rand. So part of this downgrading and the junk status simply means higher debt service costs as a country, and as I've also reported previously, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the debt service cost in South Africa will now rise over 200 billion rand over the MTEF. Therefore, the existing constrained fiscal environment may be adversely affected by the recent credit downgrade. The implications are expected to possibly cut the cross-provincial revenue, that is the provincial equitable share, the conditional grant, and also our own revenue, thus putting increasing pressure on the budget of provincial departments to effectively deliver services. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the expectation is based on the anticipated pressure on provincial allocations from national due to the impact of a possible increase in the national debt repayment cost, the depreciating rand, and the possible increase in inflation, and the possible increase in interest rate and the slow economic growth. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the impact of the depreciating rand on the provincial budget is the inflationary cost pressures associated particularly in the space of hospital services where we have to procure some medication abroad. This also includes high-tech and specialized medical equipment as well as increased medicine costs affecting the delivery of health services. Honourable Deputy Speaker, all of us are sitting here in this House, and even this House itself, uses Microsoft licensing, and all of this has implications for higher Microsoft license fees that we will have to pay as a direct result of the downgrade because borrowing money becomes more expensive, and also in terms of the exchange rate. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, largely, one of the growing sectors of the Western Cape economy is the construction sector, and as a result of the higher cost, it will also negatively impact on the infrastructure delivery agenda of this government. It is expected also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that a credit rating downgrade may also impact on investor and business confidence and a potential adverse effect on the private sector fixed investment. Honourable Deputy Speaker, there's a concept that we use in economics called gross fixed capital formation, and that's about 20% of our economy. And gross fixed capital formation, it is largely investment into the economy, largely FDIs, and if the economy is downgraded, that also has a negative impact on gross fixed capital formation. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the indirect effect will emerge from potential revenue loss due to the subdued purchasing power and activities by consumers, because one of the other sectors of the economy that you can stimulate economic growth, one is the state is to about 20%, gross fixed capital formation 20%, and 60% through consumerism. But this downgrade certainly will impact on that.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. South Africa has experienced its worst economic crisis since the dawn of the new South Africa. Despite the global crisis that affected South Africa after 2008, the economy showed no improvements impacting negatively on economic growth. To be a world player in the economy means that we are measured by the global markets who act on behalf of the investors. Deputy Speaker, South Africa was always recognized by Africa as a beacon of hope and the gateway to Africa. This was the area when leadership showed stability in government and played a significant role in investor confidence. And here I can refer to President Mandela and President Mbeki. The Western Cape economy, which thrives itself on good governance, accountability, and economic growth, is faced with the impact of downgrading, leading to junk status. Deputy Speaker, investors want to invest where good, clear, and low-risk economic policy exists, including a long-term return on their investments. South Africa is not an island on its own. It is not an island on its own. It needs the rest of Africa and the other global economic partners to succeed in the economic growth. The ruling party, namely the ANC, is at this point at junk status. The President and his cabinet is failing the people of South Africa, hence we are faced with this economic crisis. I thank you.
Order.
Economy.
Achtbare Beurwinkel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, for the sweetheart interpellation to give an opportunity to grandstand. But Speaker, let me say up front, junk status is not a situation that any financial institution or country wants to find itself. The reality is, we are there. Every financial report you read or hear spells out the reasons and its implications, and I'm not going to be defensive about it. I don't want to be part of the problem, though. I would like to be part of the solution. This interpellation was clearly placed for debate, for political expediency, and as well as another opportunity to bash national and to bash the President. This same President that they are meeting with today and smiling with broad smiles, I'm sure. This same DA, Deputy Speaker, is the same one that's always reminding us of how good they are. The chairperson of finance has now just told us that the Western Cape, if the Western Cape is as good as he says about good governance and clean audits and all of that, why are you afraid that investors are going to come here? Why are you afraid of junk status then? This Baa3 rating down from Baa2 is negative. However, it is still investor friendly and the rand is strengthening. This, Deputy Speaker, was the DA's opportunity to show the citizens of the Western Cape how proactive they are going to be about turning the situation around.
And they've missed it as well.
The MEC has earlier said there is a need for radical economic transformation. We agree wholeheartedly. But what are you going to do and how are you going to do it? That's what we want to know. It's also very disingenuous of them, Deputy Speaker, not to put to this House some of the measures that National Treasury is proactively putting on the table to attempt to turn this around. Also, none of the measures that National has put out to tell the citizens of this country how proactive they want to be about turning the situation around. And it can turn around. South Korea is an example. Can I just finish?
Quickly, your time has expired.
South Korea is an example. When they went to junk status, they concentrated on education, skills development, increasing production, decreasing imports. These things are within the ambit of the Western Cape.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired. You have another speaking turn. Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to say before I start my speech is that on the 12th of June, through you to Member Beerwinkel, Moody's downgraded South Africa's 5 largest banks. We certainly are on the border of not becoming investor friendly. So can we just keep up with the downgrade that we're moving down a very slippery slope? So the ratings downgrade by the agencies Moody's and Finch is a vote of no confidence in the economy of South Africa. A lack of investor confidence in our country's industry and service sector, both key to the development and growth of our economy, will have dire repercussions for our country's economic well-being. As prospective investors are dissuaded from bringing their money to our shores, our economy, along with our national revenue, will begin to shrink. This all translates into less money and tighter budgets with which the country will struggle to govern. The threat of a shrinking budget from the province of the Western Cape will hit the poorest members of our community the hardest. As the Western Cape invests the majority of our budget in poor communities, those individuals who depend on service delivery and clean governance will be the hardest hit. In dismissing the downgrades as nothing more than an economic fodder, ANC, the national government seems to have completely forgotten that we are now entering a period of economic turmoil from which a recovery will be incredibly difficult. The Western Cape already has the fastest growing provincial economy in South Africa, further proof that the DA's economic policy model is the way forward to growing our economy and creating the jobs, Member Chacham. A failure at national level to grow and create the national economy only means that the Western Cape will have to become increasingly self-reliant to attract investors to our province. And this is the only way we can sustain our budgets and provide much-needed services to our people. As a DA in the Western Cape, we refuse to compromise on our governance mandate because the ANC at national government is failing to steer our economy in the right direction. The ratings downgrade means that the Western Cape economy will have to be more resilient in attracting investment to our province. We look forward to continuing leading by example, Member Chacham, as the best-run provincial economy in our country and endeavour to restore our economy's glory where we elect to govern nationally in 2019.
Thank you, Member. Your time has expired. Honourable Bierwinkel, you have another minute.
Deputy Speaker, I was referring to the measures that South Korea put in place. I would like to mention for this House some of the measures that National Treasury is putting in place that could have been mentioned here. Government calls on all South Africans, including the private sector and trade unions, to work even harder together to address these concerns. The foundation for a higher growth path and socio-economic development has already been made. The ANC's statement around the Moody's downgrade, we are not defensive about it, Deputy Speaker. We acknowledge that it will affect the economy and the poor. However, we can't sit and just acknowledge it. We have to do something about it. We have to put in place proactive measures. And what are they saying? It says, we are calling for urgent, in particular, we call on social partners to work together to expand private sector investment in the local economy, continue to maintain the stable labour relations environment, remain focused on government's programme of fiscal consolidation, and strengthen governance in state-owned companies and state institutions in general. That's basically what Member Schaefer is also saying. We must start doing more for ourselves.
Thank you, Member. Your 1 minute has expired. Thank you. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Western Cape government, under the leadership of Minister of Finance, Dr. Ivan Meyer, and also the Minister of International Relations for the Western Cape, in the budget speech, referred to growth for the people in the Western Cape, but understanding that the national landscape of the economy that is now reaching junk status is affecting economic growth in the Western Cape. And notwithstanding the national situation, the Western Cape is in a position where we have stable government. We are in a position with good leadership to draw investors to the Western Cape because we are an accountable government and our focus is economic growth. The interest into the Western Cape from various countries, various business organizations is increasing by the day. And that brings hope for people in the Western Cape as well as hope for the people in South Africa. The Western Cape is the has got the leading project plan for the alternative government in 2019. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you for our Deputy Chief Whip, Mr. Joseph and Beverly Schaefer for their contributions. Because, Honourable Deputy Speaker, what is also important is to ask the question, what are the implications of junk status to ordinary citizens of the province? It's one level to debate about what the implications of the junk status to the economy, but individual households. This is the implication. It means that more people will pay more for interest rates. It means food and electricity and petrol prices will increase. It means unemployment will increase. It will also mean government will be forced to spend less on social programs. It will also mean low confidence, therefore low investments and no job creation. it also means that the rand will be worth much less, making imported goods much more expensive. What are we doing about it? This is what we are doing. We are changing the political narrative. Despite the downgrade, the Western Cape is part of the solution. We are changing the political narrative in the Western Cape. We also, secondly, investors and business confidence is the highest in South Africa, in this province. Unemployment in the Western Cape is the lowest in South Africa. We have created 127,000 jobs in terms of a 6.2% year-on-year growth. Western Cape has the highest labor force participation in South Africa. We are changing it. Also, the growth, what we're doing, the growth in the building plans in the Western Cape is 14% in 2015. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we're building investor and business confidence. When the JSE has opened an office, Honourable Deputy Speaker, in Cape Town, it signifies that this place is open for business. In addition, Honourable Deputy Speaker, about 54,000 square kilometres of commercial and residential developments were approved for construction in the Western Cape, almost 9 times approved in Gauteng for the same period. So what we are doing, building a capable state, drawing investors, investing in the economy. We're not losing hope, we're providing hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. That's the end of that interpellation. We move on to question. Order. Order. Honourable Chacham, if you carry on like that, I might just call you Squatcha again. We move on to questions. The first question that we can deal with is question 3. Honourable Minister, Mr. Uys to Minister Meyer. Minister Meyer, you again on the floor.
Thank you for this question from Honourable Member Uys. My answer is the open competitive bidding process was followed in line with the provisions of the prescripts of Section 7, Sub 2, Sub A of the Public Finance Management Act, Act 1 of 1999. Who was the successful service provider? My answer is Nedbank.
Honourable Uys.
May I ask the MEC, why were bids not advertised via the government tender bulletin?
Minister.
Deputy Speaker, this tender was advertised on the e-tender portal. This is now the process that is also followed, and the National Treasury also encouraged us to advertise these tenders on the e-tender portal.
Honourable Uys.
The Speaker, in a question for written reply, the MEC responded on the 13th of April by saying this tender costed the department 3 million rand. Can you explain why 3 million rand had to be paid to Nedbank?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as you know, the politicians are not involved in all tender processes. I was informed by the accounting officer that the different institutions that applied for that particular tender was between 3 million. It was between 3 million and 38 million.
Honourable Uys.
But Deputy Speaker, can we get an understanding, when you call for a tender for a bank, why do you pay the bank when they get the service for a big institution like this with a budget of 60 billion rand, and you must pay the bank 3 million rand?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as Honourable Uys was also a member of this executive, he fully understands that there are financial implications when you are managing and administrating the banking of a government, and this is a practice that is followed by the national government and by all the provincial governments in South Africa. And as he would know and appreciate, I have all the documentation. This will also be audited, and I'm happy to report to him the full sets of documentations that will be audited, and he will see that in the whole of South Africa, we are paying the lowest for the management and administration of our corporate banker.
Honourable Uys, your last opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Apart from the 3 million rand that the MEC's department had to pay Nedbank for just approving the tender to them, Is there additional banking charges and costs that you must pay to Nedbank?
Deputy Speaker, I'm happy to submit a written reply to that particular question.
Thank you. We proceed. The following question is, the next question is number 7. Honourable Dennis Joseph to Minister Meyer again. Minister Meyer, question 7.
Oh, yes. Honourable Deputy Speaker, also thank you for that question from the Honourable Member Joseph. Honourable Members, the banking sector is a very critical element of the economy, and a well-run banking system is critical for economic growth. The banking sector is a tool to stimulate economic growth. It has a wide set of banking products to lubricate the economy. As Kes Kuvadia, the MD of the Banking Association of South Africa, recently wrote, South Africa has the second best banking industry in the world. We should be proud of that as a country, and South Africa has all the ingredients to be successful. South Africa has a vibrant and diversified business sector, a world-class banking sector, strong legal system, innovation, and also a youth dividend. Honourable Member Joseph, international research shows that the public sector banks have performed poorly by financial measures such as return on equity assets and non-performing loans. Honourable Deputy Speaker, state banks are rooted in socialist, Marxist ideologies. State banks will operate like all other state-owned enterprises in South Africa. We are familiar with the performance of the likes of Eskom, Transnet, PRASA, Landbank, SABC, and SAA. Honourable Members, I have also seen how these state-owned entities are bleeding the state coffers. State-owned enterprises has become a fiscal black hole where taxpayers' resources are disappearing. I've also noted that some provincial governments in South Africa, under the ANC, intends to put their provincial revenue in a state bank. Honourable Members, this is illegal in terms of Section 15 of the National Treasury Regulations, determine that each provincial revenue fund must have a bank account opened in a commercial bank. So that is the requirement of law. Honourable Members, I can confirm today in this House that this government will not support a state bank or transfer the provincial revenue into a state bank, as it is illegal. My job is to protect the financial integrity of this government and the 200 billion rand over the medium-term expenditure framework. Honourable Deputy Speaker and Honourable Dennis, my job is also to protect the taxpayers' money, and all the research points that state banks are not well run. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I can tell you also a narrative. I have personally been to a state bank in Tanzania as part of my doctoral studies. When I went there this morning to have an interview of the THB, which is the Tanzania Housing Bank, the morning when I knocked on the door, somebody reminded me there's a notice on this bank, a state bank. The notice read, this bank is permanently closed, no money. I vividly remember that particular situation, and I will not allow that situation to happen here in the Western Cape. I will also raise this issue with the Minister of Finance at the next Budget Council meeting. Honourable Member Joseph, thank you for bringing this matter under the attention of this House, because as state capture happens, as the Gupta leaks happen, people are looking for another opportunity to steal money, and I will not allow the Guptas to steal this money through a state bank.
Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Minister, for responding to the question. I would like to know, I've heard some other provinces in the media about premiers talking about state banks. So I would just like to know from the Minister, is there some research that has been done, are you aware of, or that has informed the other premiers or provinces to take such a decision thus far? Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, I have also asked the colleagues to do some of this research, and I have received a policy brief, implications of establishing state banks. So we have done some preliminary research, but there are also research that indicate the risk. And one of the biggest state banks that we have is also in China, and there are big particular risks in terms of state banks, particularly in terms of repaying the loans. What this also research also indicates, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is that many of these state banks is increasing the contingent liabilities of the state. So if you use the state bank don't deliver on their commitments, and it becomes a contingent liability. And this contingent liability is nothing other but taxpayers' money, and in South Africa we use that in the form of state guarantees. And certainly all the research, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, indicates in the direction that this is a crisis to go in terms of this.
Honourable Ace.
Speaker, I want to ask the MEC for Finance why he's not telling the truth in this health. Earlier on, he quoted Section 7.2 of the Public Finance Management Act, and that act is very, very clear. You are only allowed, as a department, to bank with an authorized bank. Honourable Deputy Speaker, whether it's a state bank or not, it must be a registered bank with Treasury. And why are you not telling us the truth in terms of Section 7.2?
Order. There must be a concise question, not a motivation. Honourable Minister.
Deputy Speaker, the Act is very clear. It used the word must be opened in a commercial bank, and not what he is now misleading this House. The reference is specifically refer, and the Honourable, I will then read it to you. No. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me quote the Act, because I like to lecture the Honourable Chief Whip. It refers in terms of the National Treasury Regulations. It says Section 15.2.2, each provincial revenue fund must have a bank account configuration that consists of at least an exchequer bank account and a paymaster general bank account opened with a commercial bank.
I'll give Honourable Joseph a good chance, and if there's an opportunity. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the answer. I just would like to know what this proposals by other premiers and other provinces must have a national impact where the ruling party is going. So I would like to know from the Minister what is the risk to good governance and the investors that would like to invest in our commercial banks there.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I think this is a very relevant question.
Order.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as the Chief Whip has indicated, members of this House like to believe that South Africa is a unitary state, and if that is the case, then whatever is happening in that fiscal environment affects the total fiscal envelope of South Africa. And so this question is very relevant in the bigger fiscal policy architecture of South Africa. So, Honourable Deputy Speaker, in terms of the question that was raised by the Honourable Member Joseph, I think there are really two big implications. Firstly, and I think the Honourable members always ask, what are we doing about it? I will now have already decided that I will put this item on the Budget Council to discuss it with all the ministers in the Budget Council, because this is an important thing. And secondly, Honourable Deputy, this is illegal. We cannot have a situation that people open things in a state bank. The law is very clear. It uses the word commercial bank. But I think we have seen that corruption, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is already out of control. But we are now also seeing, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that because of all the loopholes that are being closed, the ANC ruling party and the Guptas are looking for other avenues to channel the money. It goes to Dubai, it goes in suitcases, it goes in trains and trucks and cars, and as Honourable Member Fritz said, they steal everything. So what they now want to do is to establish a state bank. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, the provinces that want to establish a state bank are the Premier League provinces, where the Guptas are active. So this is a vehicle to loot the state, or as we say, putting corruption in the Autobahn.
We move on to the next question. Honourable, it will be question number 8. Again, Minister Meyer. Question number 8.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is also an important question because it also affects all of us, but also more important, the citizens. Honourable members, we know that President Zuma has shuffled his cabinet at 12 o'clock midnight. We all know that no good things,
Order.
we all know that no good things come out of the presidency, let alone at midnight. As a member of the Budget Council, I had an excellent working relationship with the former minister and the Deputy Minister of Finance. Both of them were outstanding political heads in the National Treasury. In the last Budget Council, Honourable Deputy Speaker, where the Minister Pravin Gordhan chaired, he started the meeting in a very unusual manner. He came in the National Treasury, he sat down and he pointed fingers at all the MECs and he said the following: I want you to know that I'm not a friend of the Guptas, unquote. I could see in his remarks he was under pressure from the Luthuli House to open the tenders to the Guptas. We all know that the former minister and deputy minister were removed by the Guptas. The removal of both Minister Gordhan and Deputy Minister Jonas is the main reason for the downgrading. The removal of Minister Gordhan and Mitsubisi Jonas has entered a new phase in the political economy in South Africa. Sovereign downgrades reduced investor confidence and business confidence and the erosion of trust between society and the government. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the South African public has no confidence in the ANC government. Honourable members will know, we all know that the government's ability to raise money has also been affected. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have seen an immediate loss of 80 billion rand in bank capitalization on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. In the weeks to come, we will see further weakening of the rand, increased inflation and highest interest rates. Investors, honourable members, look for four things. They look for political stability, investor confidence, they look for debt levels as a country, and they look at your ability to pay back. Honourable members, since the removal of Minister Pravin Gordhan, we have seen further downgrades, as Honourable Member Schaefer has indicated earlier. Since the removal of Pravin Gordhan, South Africa is also now in a technical recession, implying that we have 2 consecutive negative growth rates. But, honourable members, leaders are dealers in hope. In April, together with my colleague, Minister Alan Winde, we have met with the South African Reserve Bank and discussed the economic and fiscal policy of South Africa. We've also discussed the role of the South African Reserve Bank in this particular regard. We've also shared our economic performance with the South African Reserve Bank, and we've also resolved to have closer cooperation between both the fiscal and monetary policy instruments at our disposal. The Western Cape promote good corporate governance, as Honourable Member Joseph has indicated, and we are regularly meeting business and investors. The City of Cape Town, Honourable Deputy Speaker, has the best credit rating in South Africa that inspires business and investor confidence. And the Western Cape, Honourable Deputy Speaker, despite all of these things, is open for business, despite the downgrading of the economy, and we have an outstanding performance in this current economic situation. I thank you.
Is there a follow-up? Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to ask the Minister that now that both the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister of Finance, their record has become questionable in their link to the Guptas, as the Minister has said himself now. I'm asking whether this is posing a further risk to a stable government, national finance and treasury, and whether it's really questioning the integrity of the 2 ministers at present.
Honourable Member.
Order, Minister, 1 second. Honourable Bierwinkel.
Speaker, is that not a new question? Based on what the basis of this question is?
It can be, it could not be. The Minister can decide whether he wants to deal with it. If the Minister wants to deal with it, you can continue.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I don't need to grandstand about the Guptas. The emails are out in the public domain, It is in the paper, so nobody needs to do that. But, Honourable Deputy Speaker, what I do think, and I think I will be a little bit more tactical in this my response. I think I have to work with both the new Minister of Finance, Minister Gigaba. I also have to work with the Deputy Minister, Buthelezi, who is a member of the, also responsible for the PIC, the Government Pension Fund. And I would very much like to have a good working relationship with both these two ministers in terms of the National Treasury. And I think it is important for me to note currently, and I can't have a judgment on it, I note that the Deputy Minister was involved in PRASA allegations of corruption. I also note, I can't comment on it, on the allegations that the Minister of Finance had serious implications in terms of granting some home affairs issues, permits and citizenship to the Guptas. I note these two things. I have also decided that instead of what these colleagues are doing, I won't throw these things around. I will raise this in the appropriate forum with the minister within the Budget Council, because I am concerned about the integrity of two institutions. One is the National Treasury, the other one is the South African Reserve Bank, and I will certainly put this as a matter of national importance on the Budget Council agenda.
Thank you, Minister. We proceed. Next question is question 10. Honourable Fritz. Minister Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The first part of this question is about ICANN centres, and that falls within the Department of Economic Development. I want to, however, say that we are having a review of all youth-type facilities so that it can be under one kind of department to have greater impact. But I think perhaps the question must be asked to the Economic Development Department. The second part of this question is directed at the whole question of youth cafes, and I can answer the part of youth cafes. There are spaces for youth to develop through the provision of many different services, from information technologies, seminars, training, life skills, job preparation and placement. And they specifically, each youth cafe has its own character. So you have one where they prepare and train coaches in Nyanga, and you have another one that they focus on media and Oudtshoorn, and they have, in fact, a live radio station there. So those are the characters of the youth cafes. Unfortunately, I cannot comment on the operations and the work of the ICANN. They fall within the jurisdiction of the economic development.
Honourable Kivedu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I thank the Honourable Fritz for his answer, clear, distinct and precise. In terms of the multifunction or multifunctional nature of especially the youth cafes, in terms of empowering and capacitating youth, seeing that it's Youth Month, I would like to expand a little bit on it. My biggest concern is the rollout.
Order. Honourable Kivedu.
My question is my question.
Yeah, get to the question.
I'm sorry. Not my concern. My question is, what do you have in the pipeline in terms of rolling these out to rural areas where young people can get access to these facilities?
Thank you, Honourable Member. It's a very good question. It's not just good. The first real rural cafe was opened in partnership with Petro SA, who's now also bankrupt after they also stole all the money, but they gave us money, so we opened it. So we're just happy before they went bankrupt, we stole before. So we opened that in the heart in Grootbrak. It's a real rural character. And you must just go see the kind of work that we've started with in that. We haven't officially launched it, we've taken over, and the programs are running. We also have one in George and one in Oudtshoorn. And then we are looking, a number of municipalities are now partnering with us around giving us space, and we would look at the funding, and we also apply for funding from in private institutions. So I think it's an all-of-society approach to make it sustainable to the rollout. I must tell you, the assessment that has been done of that has shown that young people are going mad for it. It's really giving young people opportunities. And it would take you in at one point, and at the other end, you can see a complete different product coming out that is ready for the job market, or get channeled into a direction for extra training. And so it almost becomes a purification process where you come into something and you get channeled, or you get a skill to actually go into job. I think the time for us to have these little things that the ANC always had, little certificate ceremonies that means nothing. It's a piece of paper permitting you to nothing. You stand there, all have a graduation ceremony with a piece of paper, and they all smile, and the minister, their former MSCs were standing there. That's a joke. Let's stop the joke. Let's get people into work. And I think that's the whole idea with the youth cafes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable.
Thank you. Just a final question to thank you, Honourable Fritz. Do you have a dedicated M&E mechanism or system in place in head office or other district or regional offices in terms of seeing that it's an input-output model and we have to look at the return on investment? How is this being conducted? On a quarterly basis, monthly or annual?
In the Cape Flats, we would say shukran for the question. It's a very specific in the month of Ramadan, because what we actually do, we've passed also the issue of just doing things for the sake. You give money to a whole lot of people and they do programs that have absolutely no impact. So we have two levels of impact. The one is from the youth program in head office itself, they have M&E and they do the quarterly checks. And then you have also from the Premier's office. Remember, this is now transversal. And there's this, in the policy unit of the Premier's department, there's this transversal group of young people who's part of the game changer, ladies and gentlemen. Just to wake up Mr. Oliver. So that we can really know that we are going in real impact forward. But I think you're making the point about it's no use having stuff and there's no impact. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you. We move on to the next question, which is question number 11. Minister Grant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Nkusela for the question. The response is that the road upgrade in the Bos area is completed. The Department's application to Eskom for electricity supply to the Bos street lighting has been acknowledged and approved by them. The Department has accepted the quotation, and the deposit to supply the electricity has already been paid to Eskom. Our streetlight maintenance contractors are currently installing the ducting, which are the sleeves underneath the road, for the electrical cabling. Once this work has been completed, the cabling will be installed by Eskom and the electrical power connected.
Honourable Nkusela.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I appreciate the response given by the Minister. The community of the overstrained municipality, in particular the Bos, has been waiting indefinitely to get this sorted out. Both the municipality, the local municipality, the B municipality, and the Overberg district municipality have been at pains to get this resolved. I would like to know from the Minister, how long will it take to complete the entire exercise so that there's light in Bos?
Minister.
Deputy Speaker, I asked the same question of my department when they came with this reply, and I'm reliably informed that it will happen within 1 calendar month, that the lights will be on.
Thank you. We will then proceed to the next question, which is question number 13, Honourable Maseku, to Minister Fritz.
Honourable Maseku, the first part of this question again relates to the whole question of the National Department that determines who and when and who gets grants. We don't administer that. So I think that part we will, you can defer there. The second part, however, is in terms of the Children's Act, it is very, very clear and it states that if a girl child is younger than 16, and anyone who has sex with that girl child, it is statutory rape. Statutory rape. Very, very important. And the biological father will not have parental responsibilities and rights of children in terms of Children's Act in that case. If the girl child is younger than 18 and the biological father is also younger than 18, the guardian of the girl child will be the guardian of the baby, most often the mother of the child, right? So the mother of the girl. And if the girl child is 17 and the biological father is 19 or older, the father will have all parental responsibilities, and that's the biological father will have all parental responsibilities and rights, and not the maternal grandmother. If both partners are 18 and older, they will be holders of full parental responsibilities and rights of the child, regardless of the marital status. Parental responsibilities and rights are described in Section 18 of the Children's Act of 2005, and it includes caring, maintaining contact, and contributing to the maintenance of the child.
Thank you. There's no follow-up. We continue with the next question, which is question 16. Honourable Mackenzie for Minister Fritz.
I don't know if it's in last. Yes. The Mitchell's Plain Youth Cafe is opening on the 21st of June, and I've invited you as a very, very dear gesture of your goodwill. While the renovations are being done, the contracted service provider is having community outreach programs. Conferencing sessions will precede the opening of the Youth Cafe, and in fact, on Saturday coming, they're having a huge what they call an unconferencing session in Mitchell's Plain around this. This is a process where the youth is consulted on services they need. The B part of your question, where the Rocklands Youth Cafe, the Rocklands Youth Cafe, remember the lease issues that we had, and they try to charge us, you know, these private characters want to always, when they hear government, they want to go very high, so we just couldn't afford the rent. But what the program did, and that's specifically our labs, they did a lot of outreach programs specifically in a school at the School of Skills in Mitchell's Plain in Rocklands, and they've done a number of other outreach programs that specifically led to leadership development, life skills, digital wallet, web design, entrepreneurship, Generation Y, applications development, and there's a very interesting program that we're doing with the Youth Cafe at the moment. Some of, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members, and specifically Honourable Beerwinkel, from economic development point of view, there's a number of young people who go to School of Skills, Deputy Speaker, and after T4, which is almost like the matric of School of Skills, and if I just give you a background of school, for some people who perhaps I didn't know it, School of Skills are a type of high school for children who fail twice in the primary school. So they go into the School of Skill and they learn a skill. So like some are bolsterers, others are hairdressers, some are home carers. And so what we're doing now with we're experimenting with one school together with the youth cafes. We are trying to see how can we take them from that level T4 to actually become independent entrepreneurs. So we are now shadowing them, assisting them into, and I know the bolsterers, to move them to a point where they can actually open their own upholstery, little workshops, and all those old couches that you see laying around there, you will be shocked how they restore some of that stuff. The other one is the excellent chefs are those guys, but because the qualification is not recognized, they actually get underpaid by big places, you know, some of our big hotels. So we're again trying to see how do we get them into the space of catering, but where they can become self-employed caterers and business people. And otherwise, our program, we're wasting all our investment in this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honourable Member Fritz. I also just received the invitation from your office and I will attend. Can the Honourable Minister please tell us how is the youth cafe that's opening next week on the 21st, how is it advertised, and how are we going to get the community in Mitchell's Plain to attend the opening, the youth? and what mediums of advertising are being used to attract the youth of Mitchells Plain, and also what sort of services are we going to give the youth of Mitchells Plain at the Youth Cafe? Thank you.
Of the Mitchells Plain youth is going to be just a continuation of the one that was in Rocklands. But the important point is, it's all, we make sure that it's in the Plainsman. And you know the Plainsman is the best little advert carrier in Mitchells Plain, if it's in the Plainsman. But also, we're going to also look at other forms of advertisements at schools, because we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, the after-school function that the youth cafes are now also playing, where young people can come do homework and projects and move to a next level in the after-school space. We've seen that now being very valuable. So we will advertise at all schools to ask young people, and it's going to be at the bus, you know, at the Old Town Centre, in the bus exchange. So everyone must come there, you must pass there. It's really going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to next Wednesday. Thank you.
Honourable Mackenzie.
Okay, so, can the Minister perhaps tell us what services will be given to the youth of Mitchells Plain at the Youth Cafe, and also take into account that a lot of the youth are not computer literate, and what actions his department will take to ensure that youth, particularly those unemployed youth who need the CVs to be typed up, what services that the Minister or his department will provide to the youth of Mitchells Plain. Thank you.
We will focus a lot on the digital development, and we're actually looking, remember we started with the digital artisans, with big companies like Google who came on board, and so we're continuing with that relationship. Interestingly also, they're looking at issues like the digital wallet, the web design, and other entrepreneurial programs. And I think one important component, ladies and gentlemen, is to get our young people into a space that we sometimes forget, the social, psycho kind of issues of our young people. We will get that. And the one thing with youth cafes, they actually work on that. So that if you get the job, that you actually go on a Monday to work. That you don't have to decide the party is more important on a Friday, and that the bride is more important, that you don't want to go to work, that you actually go to work. I think it's an important thing that we say unemployment, but we forget there's many jobs when our young people get opportunities. Some of them like really just throw it away because we haven't dealt with the other issues that hassle them and that are problems to them, and that's the psychosocial issues. And we're really looking at doing more around that so that our young people can take citizen responsibility, go to work, basic responsibility, care for a child if you make a child, look after your family, and those basic kind of humanity issues.
Honourable Mackenzie, your third opportunity.
Yeah. And can the Minister tell us what is the opening hours of the Youth Cafe, so that we can obviously inform our constituents as what time is it opening and what time is it closed? And then also, Minister, can you perhaps also tell what the effectiveness, given that the one in Rocklands was open before, how effective do you think, and how many youth will the new Youth Cafe reach? Thank you. Yeah. Given unemployment is so high in Mitchells Plain amongst the youth.
Yeah, I hear the Honourable David talk about the standing committee because a lot of the issues are raised there, but I also want to say, I think the youth cafes for the first time made a big, we had a very big shock with the Mitchells Plain, the number of physical feet, bodies, home bodies that went over the kind of doorstep, oor die drempel gegaan het. And I think part of that is the whole issue of that people, young people only come there if they find it valuable. They will not come. Part of one of the questions that you asked was the hours. It's normally from about 8 o'clock in the morning till 5. We also, because it's in the town centre, we can actually look at that, because there's very rifle of evening classes or evening things where people who come from work, so that our workers can also enjoy the fruits of some of the kind of facilities that we have. We must just again then look at the TPA, the transfer payment agreement, and make that perhaps perhaps thrice a week to have it at night till 8 o'clock. But I think those are all issues that we can check, test, and then roll it out if it's successful. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you. That then disposes of the questions. Just for clarity purposes, the questions not dealt with today will stand over till the next question time, but the two interpellations will have to be introduced afresh because the full quota has already been taken for the next week's sitting, unless there's an arrangement that these two replace the previous two. That's just for clarity. We then proceed to statements by members. I see the DA first.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Today, I would like to highlight the continued success being made by the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape. But in contrast, in and amongst the challenges posed by the ANC as they continue to run the public transport service, just like other SOEs, to the ground. As a Democratic Alliance, we have continued to make progress with regards to making our rural and urban spaces more accessible. Deputy Speaker, to the detriment of the people of the Western Cape, the commuter railway service remains a major hindrance to the poor and the working class residents. On a daily basis, our province continues to lose millions due to the mismanagement of PRASA and poor leadership that they provide. Trains are late, people are charged for coming late, people are dismissed for frequent late coming, and many people who had to come back to look for after their children who are coming from the school could not afford to be early at home to look after their kids because of the failure and poor management by the Metro Rail leadership. Besides the ongoing allegations and reports of corruption associated with its service, for decades they have simply left their infrastructure to collapse. Metro Rail, to say to you unequivocally, this is not acceptable. Deputy Speaker, it saddens me that the Metro Rail, which was once regarded as one of the best passenger railway service on the continent, has been left to disintegrate like many other SOEs. Millions of hours of productivity and billions of rands have been lost due to the inconveniences caused by the services. Trains are supposed to provide, Deputy Speaker, the safe and convenient mode of transportation. Instead, they are unsafe and are failing to provide the reliability to the commuters. People of South Africa cannot wait any longer for the Democratic Alliance to take over the national government that they fix some of the problems created by the ANC government in all these SOEs. The practical example of many such endeavors.
Member Nana, your time is up. Thank you. I see the ANC.
Thank you, Chair. This week we watched Ms. Helen Zille give some half-hearted apology, which she was clearly forced to give, to save not only her untransformed racist face, but also that of her weak puppy, so-called party leader, Mmusi Maimane. What was very clear from this so-called apology is that...
Order, 1 second. Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you. The Honourable Member clearly stated that the Honourable Premier is a racist, which is unparliamentary.
I was not in the chamber at that moment. That is racist if the member said that.
He's reading from prepared statement, so you can just repeat it if he wishes.
You cannot refer to another member of the House as being racist, so you must withdraw that if you did say that. You must withdraw the word racist if you did say it in relation to another member.
Okay, that's racist.
Thank you.
Okay. But, okay. What was very clear from this so-called apology is that Honorable Helen Zille continues to be an unrepentant who was actually apologizing for the possible harm she may have caused the Democratic Alliance. She was not apologizing for having hurt and offended black South Africans who continue to bear the brand of a colonial past, which violently dispossessed them of their land. The fact of the matter remains that Zille sees nothing wrong with her views about colonialism and that her views are actually representative of the views held within the Democratic Alliance. Zille called her leaders African nationalists and anti-white who dare to differ with her sentiments.
Order, 1 second, member. Honourable Wale.
With Deputy Speaker, you know, this constant reference to members by their surname instead of using the accepted terminology of Honourable Member, I mean, it constantly creeps in. He's been here long enough to understand the rules.
Thank you, member. Point taken. That is how we all honourable members. Please do that.
In an absurd turn of events, after a clear power tussle between the so-called leader of the DA, Mmusi Maimane, and the Honourable Zille, who still views herself as the actual leader of the DA, we are informed of a sanction which allows Honorable Zille to continue as a Premier of the Western Cape but suspended from party decision-making structures. This clearly shows that the DA does not take the people of the Western Cape serious. How can a person continue as a Premier of a DA-led government, yet not allowed to form part of a DA decision-making structures? On what basis does she continue to serve as a Premier then? What does she derive her mandate? Helen Zille is clearly an illegitimate, Honorable Helen Zille is clearly an illegitimate Premier of the Western Cape. She broke her party code of conduct. She broke the trust of the people of the Western Cape and therefore simply cannot be allowed to continue as a Premier of this province. She repeatedly abused her position as Premier to attack and offend black people by labeling them as professional blacks, refugees, and even sang the praises of some apartheid colonial legacies. She must go.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired. The DA. Honourable Kividu.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Fellow Honourable members, the media and distinguished guests. A specialised gang unit or the deployment of the SANDF is needed to stop gangsters from increasing governing our community. Earlier this year, I released a press statement urging for the reintroduction of the specialised gang unit, but national government continues to fail to respond to our requests to the detriment of the people in the province. Honourable Deputy Speaker, although the Western Cape government has launched several initiatives to promote safe access for the youth to schools, further assistance from national government is desperately needed. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the severity of gang violence has most recently led to 4 schools having to close down in Lavender Hill. Consequently, this is jeopardizing the future of our youth. Both the young children and adults in our communities are increasingly becoming characterized by fear, hopelessness, depression, due to the amount of gang violence experienced on a regular basis. At this juncture, I salute the resilience and dedication of Western Cape MEC of Community Safety, Dan Plato, who last week, in spite of being threatened with death, still saw his way fit to lead a march of protesters against crime in the same Lavender Hill. These instances are rife in communities where the youth are faced with despair and a lack of economic opportunity, eventually turning to gangsterism as a last resort in communities where no other alternative exists. I fear that we are increasingly coming to the point where we are now being governed by criminals as the national government refuses to address this issue. In conclusion, Honourable Deputy Speaker, less words and more action is what is needed to rid our society once and for all of these wicked elements.
Member, your time has expired.
Yes, thank you.
The EFF is not here. It's again the DA. The DA. Honourable Casella.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, our youth are the future of this nation. It is vital that we ensure that they, at all times, acquire the necessary and the relevant skills to become successful in life. We are in Youth Month, and tomorrow is Youth Day. I can only proudly say that this DA government takes young people seriously and puts them in the front of service delivery. I'm also pleased that the Department of the Premier and Social Development in 2013 had the vision to formulate the Western Cape Youth Development Strategy to ensure that by the age of 25, young people have the tools they require to live a successful life of value. Speaker, with a view of becoming government in 2019, the DA government here in this province have taken a leading role in creating an enabling environment that allows and ensures access to various opportunities across the spectrum, especially in our municipalities in the Western Cape. We are the only party that very clear in how to address the challenges confronting our young people and the unacceptable 36.8% youth unemployment in this country. This is where I would like to commend Minister Albert Fritz and his department for the youth cafes in our communities, because this enables us to support, empower, and develop our youth across this province in all communities. Speaker, please allow me, Deputy Speaker, allow me to express my deepest appreciation to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for hosting a successful youth parliament on Saturday, the 10th of June. More than 100 young men and women of a diverse background in gender, race, and demography participated in the dialogue. We need now to ensure that they are able to access every opportunity presented to them and seize them fanatically, so that they may enjoy the benefits that we have presented before them. Better together.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired. The ANC. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, Western Cape Premier Helen Zille's refusal to appoint a commission of inquiry into the ongoing raping and killing of our children is shocking. Let me put it on record that the ANC supports the call for the establishment of the proposed commission.
Order, member, just 1 second. Honourable Minister Fritz.
Check if something is factually incorrect. Because the Premier never said she don't want to appoint. That's a news report.
Order.
That's from a news report. I was in the meeting.
Order, Minister Fritz. Order.
I was leading the House.
Order. It may be misleading the House. The chair is unfortunately not in a position to rule on that. It's a debating point, not a point of order, but the member may continue.
Let me put it on record that the ANC supports the call for the establishment of the proposed commission. We further believe that it will be an independent and incredible exercise. We hope that its recommendation will go a long way in providing long-term solutions to the challenge. Today, there are not less than 21 children who were brutally murdered, including molested and raped. More increasingly, children are led from the playgrounds that are not secured and well monitored. In addition, many of the victims fall prey of people who are known to them. Every day, it becomes more dangerous for children to play outside their homes and even to be sent to the local shops. This is as callous as her broken promise 8 years ago to appoint Children's Commissioner for the province to advance the protest and protect the interest of the children. Ironically, the DA and Premier Zille spent millions of taxpayers' money on the Kailicha Commission of Inquiry. And even though there was an overwhelming objection to it, the DA-led government failed to implement the recommendations of this commission. I also do not believe that such commissions will be expensive. No amount of money can be compared to the lives of the children and their welfare. For once, Premier Zille, listen to the loud voices of the people.
Thank you. The DA next. Honourable Max.
Deputy Speaker, it is a known fact that we are a sports-loving nation, and this includes our many young people across this province. With it being Youth Month, then, the utilization of sports can play a definite role in getting our young people active instead of them engaging in substance abuse and gangsterism or any other social ills we have grown accustomed to. Speaker, during this month, we have an opportunity to ensure that our youth are given complete access to sporting opportunities in their respective communities. I make this call because we have recently seen how gang violence have been flaring up across the Cape Flats, and in many cases, it is mostly young people that are losing their lives. This must be urgently addressed and corrected. We need to ensure that our communities are aware of the various structured sporting activities that is available at the more than 180 mod centers across the Western Cape. The more we get our young people active, the more we will ensure that they are empowered to develop their sporting skills and talents. Furthermore, we will ensure that they choose to pursue the positives in society instead of the negatives. Thank you.
Thank you. The ICDP. ICDP first.
Oh. Deputy Speaker, yet again I want to bring the issue of bullying under attention of this House. This month alone, so many pupils were bullied at schools. Just an incident happened the other day, Deputy Speaker, that is saddening. A Tuscany Glen high school learner, aged 15, while writing exams, was thrown with condoms in her face. Deputy Speaker, they had to remove her, and that was one of many attacks. And she suffers now from anxiety attacks, and she's on prescription drugs. She's also been placed on suicide watch, and the parents fear that she will take her life. The Minister of Education is not here, but the chairperson is here, and we try to engage the role players. But Deputy Speaker, something must be done. It was said in the report that the educator, while they were doing that to the young girl, was laughing, and no disciplinary action was taken against the educator. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP urges the Minister and the Western Cape Education Department to investigate this matter and bring dignity to our children at schools that are bullied. Thank you.
Thank you. The ANC. Arnold Chacha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The disastrous DA stumbled from calamity to scandal. Despite serious breaches of trust, Premier Helen Zille lectures from her own goals with racist tweets aimed at people of color to allegation of nepotism, favoring her children and some family members. Part of this...
Order, Honourable Chief Whip.
Rise on the issue of alleging that one of our honourable members is a racist, saying that she racist tweets.
Order. I did not hear it in that way. Honourable Ace.
Correct, Deputy Speaker. It was not in that way saying she's a racist. It was a racist tweet. And something quite different.
That's a borderline case. Let me think about that, but continue for the moment.
Yeah, let's enjoy. Borderlines are good. Part of this was to expedite the buying of government computers for the use of her son's business to promote his products in schools. Internally, the DA has no confidence in its immediate past leader, Zille, and her ability to continue as the leader of the Western Cape as Premier, but we expect us to be with her here continuously. Honourable Zille can also not be trusted in taking decision and position and making position in this government. She overstayed her welcome and she must go. The DA in this provincial legislature, we know that there are many in the DA who don't want her, but they are afraid and are threatened by the Honourable Chief Whip of the DA of exercising their conscience to vote her out. Ningamagwala ndinincamile, gxothani umshologu lo, uyamosha lo sisi. That's why the DA leaders do not want to put the vote of no confidence motion today because bangamagwala bancancazela. Khuphani itutu eli limoshayo. Inkosi.
Order. The DA is next. Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Following 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth,
Order. Please come to order before the member can continue.
we're going to keep talking about this. We can safely and worryingly confirm that South Africa is in a recession. We have to ask ourselves just how adept our new Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, is at implementing his so-called radical economic transformation when he clearly cannot even manage and grow our own economy. How are we going to govern where the backbone of our country is slowly crumbling? Developing economies, including that of South Africa, emerged from the 2009 economic recession relatively unscathed. Along with many of its developing African counterparts, South Africa's economy shrugged off a recession which hard hit the developed world. Yet, while African countries such as Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Rwanda are currently some of the world's fastest growing economies, South Africa's, under the Zupta-captured ANC, is shrinking. There is no sign more crystal clear of pure political failure in a country than economic decline, especially in a developing country such as our own, which should be capitalizing on the recessions of economies beyond our shores. While the ANC bickers on about radical economic transformation and white monopoly capital, courtesy of now the infamous Bell Pottinger siege of our country and its government, our economy is flatlining. South Africa's entry into economic recession is the political red flag of the inept and unsustainable leadership. Under the ANC, South Africa's economy has come to a grinding halt. Now more than ever, the country is beginning to see through the promises made by a corrupt president and the party which continues to prop him up. The DA is waiting in the wings to take the helm of our country's economy in 2019, bringing with it growth, jobs, and the prosperity our nation deserves.
Thank you, Member. Order. That concludes the member statements. We now move on to notices of motion. Are there any motions we notice is given? Honourable Makaleni first.
Deputy Speaker, I move with notice that the House calls for the immediate establishment of the Commission of Inquiry into Child Murders in the province after the number of children's deaths this year rose to 21 and demands the Premier reconsider rejecting such calls from parents and civil organizations, citing it will be too expensive.
Notice is taken of that. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy. I move that the House debate the importance of heritage in the Western Cape.
Notice taken. Honourable Wenger. Honourable Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I move that the House debates the national government's plan to cut the number of police officials over the next 2 years and the impact that this will have on the Western Cape.
Thank you. Notice is taken. Honourable Janki.
The House institutes an investigation into the appointment of Davi Adonis as the DA-run Knysna Municipality Director for Community Services, even though he did not meet the requirements for the post at the time of his appointment 3 years ago.
Notice taken of that. Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that the House debates the alarming national youth unemployment rate of 38.6% and the failure of the national government to create a growing economy that directly affects the youth of the Western Cape.
Thank you. Notice taken. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House notes with concern that hundreds of pupils in junior secondary school in Joe Slovo near Milnerton are missing out on this year's education as the Western Cape Education Department refused to recognize their school. Calls on an urgent intervention and for the MEC to explain how she will deal with this situation.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that one. Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that this House debate bringing back the specialized units to contribute towards combating and fighting crime, violence, femicide, and gang violence, amongst others, in the Western Cape.
Notice taken. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that this House condemns MEC Donald Grant and his department for stereotyping coloured people in the production of an anti-drunk driving video that has caused deep hurt and insult, and calls for action to be taken against all those involved in the release of this video and demands an unequivocal public apology to especially the offended community.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Honourable Inanna.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion with notice that this House debates the impact created by PRASA.
Order. You may continue.
That this House debates the impact created by PRASA's failure to fulfill its obligation of being a safe transport service provider.
Notice is taken of that. Honourable Davids.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House calls on MEC Mbombo to investigate reports that a woman's life was endangered when she was turned away at Grooteski Hospital because of shortage of beds, when the doctors knew that she had a dead fetus in her abdomen.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Are there any further? Honourable Gaga.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That I move with notice that the House debate the reason why 76.6% top management position in this province are still occupied by white people, as reported in this year's Employment Equity Report.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that motion. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, I move that the House calls for the DA-run government to implement more programs to help fight the scourge of gender-based violence and killing of young children in the province.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Are there any further? No further? We then proceed to... is there another one? Honourable Bierwinkel? The hammer almost came down.
Iemand voor my. I move with notice, Deputy Speaker, that this House calls for an urgent investigation into the appointment of Marius Botha as the CFO of Mossel Bay Municipality when he was found guilty of serious corruption charges, including fraud and money laundering pertaining to his previous municipal job in the Northern Cape, and calls for his immediate sacking as the DA administration only placed him on leave.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Are there further? Honourable Makaleni.
Speaker, I move that the House notes that the Children's Protection Week has come and gone, but yet there is nothing tangible done by the provincial government to ensure the safety of children, although 21 deaths have been reported thus far for this year. Mourns all young innocent lives of children lost in the province and calls on the authority to come up with an intervention to curb violence against young women and children in the Western Cape.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that one. Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House debates the increase in cash and transit heists in the province following reports that they have more than tripled since the beginning of the year.
Notice is taken of that motion. Any further notices? We then proceed to the next section. Honourable Kivedu, very quickly.
Thank you.
Motions without
Honourable
notice.
Speakers, I move without notice that this House expresses its deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of 5-year-old Mementle Lekaka of the Strand, who was brutally murdered last week. May his dear soul rest in peace.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Chacham.
Advocate. I move with a motion without notice that the House congratulates the ANC Western Cape PEC member, Sfison Twin, and ANC Youth League NEC member on his appointment as a chairperson of the NYDA board, and wish him well in discharging his responsibilities.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I've moved without notice that this House commends the firefighters and disaster management personnel of Westreach and Kailicha fire stations for the assistance and response they provided during the Cape Storm for the people of Kailicha and Mitchells Plain. I'm also. Thank you.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Lekker.
Sure. Deputy Speaker, that the House notes tomorrow South Africa celebrates Youth Day, a day that used to reflect on youth affairs and the youth uprising of 1976.
Any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Mitchell first.
Dankie, agbare Deputy Speaker, dat die huis sy gelukwensing aan die nuut verkose DA uitvoerende burgemeester, raadslid Japie van der Linde van Beaufort Wes oordra, nadat die DA en KDF koalisie weer eens oor die ANC geseëvier het in die onlandse tussenverkiesing. Hiermee verseker ons dat goeie, korrupvrye regering na 22 jaar aan die inwoners van Beaufort Wes gebied gaan word.
Enige beswaar? Daar is besware, het sal op die ordelys gedruk word. Honorable Magaka.
That the House,
Order.
I move without notice that the House congratulates the South African Communist Party Western Cape for holding a successful elective conference on the 14th and 15th May, where Comrade Benson Nglensu was elected a new provincial secretary and wishes them well in executing their revolutionary task.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objection. Will be printed in the order paper. Honorable Inana.
Njalo nje. Motion without notice that this House condemns the banning of buses and trains and the looting of the shop in the train station in the Western Cape. So I move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Honorable Gopi.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House conveys condolences to the family of 3 children that died in a Wendy House fire in Vala Park on Friday last week caused by electrical fault, and wish a speedy recovery to the 4th victim recovering in hospital. I thank you.
Thank you. No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honorable Mackenzie.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House commend Hester Grint, Jade Grint and Petrus van der Westhuizen from Oudtshoorn. She, her daughter Jade and Petrus drove to Oudtshoorn, from Oudtshoorn to Knysna. They set up a coffee station, soup and water station to provide it to the firefighters during the Knysna fire. That this dedication is noteworthy and we should commend them for this initiative. Thank you.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honorable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would like to move without notice that this House strongly condemns this week's arson attack on Metro Rails and the vandalism that took place at the Cape Town station by commuters, and calls for a genuine cooperative government approach to deal with the urgent priority to ensure safe, affordable, reliable and an efficient rail service to the citizens of Cape Town.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honorable Makisela.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes with great sense of gratitude, humility and appreciation the outpouring love, support and humanitarian relief provided to the communities of Knysna, George and Pito municipalities as they battled fires that ravaged the Southern Cape last week. Further note the speed, professional response, coordinated efforts, and the spirit of intergovernmental relations between all the 3 spheres of government during this disaster. I so move.
Is there an objection? It will be printed in the order paper. Honorable Kividu.
Dankie, Speaker. 'n Mosie sonder kennisgewing dat die huis sy innige meegevoel uitspreek teenoor die man en geliefdes van die onderwyseres, Evangeline Brockman, verbonde aan Blomvlei Primêr in Hanover Park, wat haar lewe tragies op Sondag 11 Junie 2017 verloor het. Mag haar siel in vrede rus.
Geen beswaar teen die voorstel sonder kennis, geen beswaar teen die voorstel self. Goedgekeur. Honorable Chacha.
Motion without notice that the House lauds the DTI for its work in the province and congratulate Hisense for their significant milestone in producing its millionth fridge and television at the factory in Atlantis.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honorable Schaefer.
I hereby move to congratulate Green Cape for its achievements at the 6th Annual Ecologic Awards 2017, which identifies individuals and organizations that contribute towards environmentally sustainable world. Green Cape scooped the Gold Award for its contribution to the green economy, a silver for waste management, and a bronze for climate change action. I hereby so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Magaka. Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Magaka.
I move without notice that the House reject Honourable Helen Zille's disingenuous apology for praising some aspects of apartheid, racist colonialism, and calls on her to be a responsible leader to step down from the position of Premier. Thank you.
Any objection? There's no objection to that. Order will be printed in order paper. Honourable Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That this House establishes an ad hoc committee to establish and to investigate and report whether the Honourable Leader of the Opposition and the Honourable Member Dugmore, during a sitting of the House on the 4th of May 2017, deliberately misled the House when they made the following statements. Quote, she later called Africans refugees, said by the Leader of the Opposition. I quote, most recently she exposed her adoration for colonial apartheid, Leader of the Opposition. I quote, the Premier in this very House referred to black African ANC women members and said all they are good for is to collect patkos, food for the road, after meetings and drive home, said by Member Dugmore. I quote, then we had the refugees tweet, no sincere apology about the hurt, because in her consciousness, she has done nothing wrong. Member Dugmore. I move that the committee consist of 4 members of the DA, 2 members of the ANC, and 1 member of the ACDP.
Any objection? There's no objection. Order will be printed on the order paper. Are there any further? Honourable Mitchell.
Dankie, agbare Deputy Speaker, dat die huis sy opregte dank aan elke DA en KDF aktivis oordra vir hul onbaatsigtige harde werk en opoffering met die aanloop tot die tussenverkiesing in Wijk 7 in Beaufort West. Dit is deur hulle vasbeslotenheid dat sukses in die munisipaliteit behaal is.
Daar's 'n beswaar, dit sal op die ordelys gedruk word. Honourable Makaleni.
I move without notice that the House welcomes and commends the establishment of the One Too Many South African campaign to protest against the rise in violence targeted at women and children, and commends the civil society organization that united under this campaign.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Botha.
Chair, that this House notes and sends condolences to the wife and family of Alderman Josephus from Porterville, a councillor of Bergrivier and former Deputy Mayor of the West Coast District Municipality, who passed away on May 23rd, 2017. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Chacha.
I move that the House commends the good work done by the Competition Commission in the province investigating alleged price fixing and collusive behavior by local companies, and welcome its decision to chase 3 Western Cape companies to the Competition Tribunal.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Kivido.
A motion without notice. Thanks, Honourable Deputy Speaker. That this House expresses its deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of Kyle Grace, the grade 7 learner who died in a freak accident at Edgemead Primary School in Cape Town. May his dear soul rest in peace.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Jantje.
That the House notes as shame the City Council disciplinary action which recommended to MEC Bredell to fine DA Councillor Shane Ramsey with 10,000 and community service, and calls on the MEC to prioritize the dignity of the poor who were insulted by the councillor by imposing a harsher penalty which would include removing Ramsey.
Any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Makaleni. Sorry, order.
I move that.
Order.
Speaker, can I be protected?
Was there an objection?
Delayed reaction.
Order. There apparently was an objection. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, can I be protected?
Order. Order. Please continue, Honourable. Member, please continue.
Masego and Theo, please, members.
I'm waiting for you to start. You may now start.
Deputy Speaker, I move that the House notes the damage caused by the recent Cape storms, which destroyed people's homes, displacing thousands and leaving several others deceased, and conveys condolences to the families who lost loved ones.
No objection to the motion be moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Order. Agreed to. Honourable Mackenzie.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House commend Impact Through Sports in Mitchell's Plain and Mr. Keith Mayer, who organized donations during the Cape Storm for victims, which provided many people in Tafelberg with a hot meal during this difficult period. I move so.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Davids. Honourable Davids. I've seen the other person
Thank
first.
you.
Honourable Diana.
Motion without notice that the House notes with concern that the Western Cape water crisis is a self-manufactured crisis as the DA-led administrations across municipalities failed to plan for revised water uses. This was evident in the time taken to respond to water leaks calls and now is left with less than 159 million cubic meters in the dams, and notes further that declaring the province as a disaster area was only for the interest of a cash injection for the DA. I so move.
Any objection? There is an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Inana.
And the motion without notice that the House notes and congratulates the God George Bus Company, the firefighter and volunteers for their sterling work in helping and evacuate the residents and fighting the raging fire in the Knysna area. So I move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? Order. Order. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Davids.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that the House notes with concern that between January and March this year, at least 3,159 structures were either damaged or destroyed by the fires in this province, leaving 41 people dead, and calls for delivery of houses and eradication of informal settlements. Thanks.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Schaefer.
I hereby move to acknowledge Working on Fire, the EPWP program, which trains young people to be wildland firefighters, run by the Department of Environmental Affairs, for the incredible work they did to fight the recent fires along the Southern Cape. I hereby move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Chacham.
I move that the House congratulates Iziko or Slaves Lodge Museum for their successful launch of the True Positive Eyes, an exhibition which attempts to break the stigma of HIV and AIDS. The House notes the exhibition is directed by a London-based South African photographer and HIV/AIDS activist Gideon Mandel. Further notes the exhibition started in Mexico, 2008, Rio de Janeiro, 2009, Gauteng, 2010, and now we have the Cape Town chapter, which started on the 1st of June, with the following exhibitionists from Cape Town: Elihle Ndundula, Nadia Lobi, Basil Mtungwana, Fiona Mo, Sean, Charles Google, supported by Google Dlamini and Pindile Masukuta from Gauteng.
Any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Mackenzie.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House commends Councillors Joan Hoodman, Washila Harris, Tulani Stemele, Gawatim, and community activist Norman Arendse for the work they played during and after the storm to provide assistance to the victims of Cape Storm in Kailicha and Mitchell's Plain. They are truly, indeed, public servants.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes with concern that level 4 water restrictions are in full swing in Cape Town and demands that people in the Cape Flats not be targeted with water sharing and increases in water tariffs, but instead real water guzzlers should be identified and disciplined. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? Is there an objection? There is an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Kisela, you may proceed.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House notes that Mossel Bay has been voted as the Western Cape's finalist for the TV program, Kwela, in its Kwela Town of the Year competition 2017. This is a vote of confidence in the people-friendly and hospitable destination which is attracting young, old, local and international visitors. I further congratulate the contribution and the sterling leadership of the Mossel Bay municipality. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Is there an objection? That will be printed on the order paper then, if there's an objection. Honourable Davids.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice that the House notes the slow pace of housing delivery in the province has led to the land invasions in Khayelitsha and condemns the 3 separate land invasions during the last month.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No. Is there an objection? There's an objection. Will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Chacha.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Move that the House notes the ANC Western Cape call for immediate suspension of the provisional rights allocation to West Coast rock lobster, crayfish, until it has engaged Minister Zokwana on the matter following disparate calls it received from fishing communities and commends the organization for taking up the struggles of communities in the absence of the caring provincial government.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House welcomes the establishment of the new Sexual Offences Court in George and applauds the Justice Department for this intervention.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. It's agreed to. Any further? Honourable Davids.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that the House welcomes Minister Sisulu's intervention by challenging the sale of the Tafelberg site in court and commends the move to fight to reverse the legacy of apartheid spatial development, which the DA is trying so hard to preserve.
Any objection? There's an objection to that one. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Holyfield first.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House note with shocking scenes at the Stellenbosch University where Nazi-inspired posters were put up by 3 students that have since been suspended by the institution, welcomes the swift action by the university to identify and deal with these culprits, condemns the act, and note how fast Premier Helen Zille continued racist propaganda is perpetuated across this province.
Order. Honourable Chief Whip.
We have no problem with the original intent of the thing, but it's done without notice, first of all, and secondly, links 2 completely disparate things in order to be able. So,
order. Order. Allow the member to continue. Order.
We object to it being done without notice.
Notice is taken of that. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Lekker, were you wanted to do another one?
Thank you.
The microphone is not on there. I can't hear the member. Please continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House commends parents, teachers, and pupils in Lavender Hill schools who confronted gangs in the area to stop the daily gang-related shootings that threatened innocent lives of children at school. Welcomes the SAP's intervention in increasing police visibility and deploying TRTs, and condemns the provincial government's lukewarm response to the life-threatening situation. As usually, it shifted the goalpost and resorted to a blame game and cheap politics.
Any objections to that one? There's an
I thought as
objection.
much.
Will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, this is my own motion. I move that this House note with concern that pupils of Vukukanye Primary School in Kukuletu missed out on a week of education due to community protest. Note further, Lavender Hill pupil also missed out on a number of school days due to gang violence, and call on the Western Cape Education Department to come up with a catch-up program for these learners.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Makaleni first.
Motion without notice. That the House notes with concern that the scourge of rape and murder of young women and children continues unabated in the province. Last month alone, 14-month-old Lindo Kuhlekota was raped and murdered by her father. 3-year-old Courtney Peters was also raped and murdered by her father's friend. That stays in the same house. 5-year-old Minentle Likaka from Strand was raped, murdered and dumped under a bridge in the area. And 33-year-old Unati Matukene from Langa was raped and murdered. Further notes, the number of murdered children this year has risen to 21 and welcomes the arrest of perpetrators for all these mentioned cases.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Nkasela.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This is the last one if the ANC will stop. I move that the House wishes a speedy recovery to all persons who sustained injuries during the recent Cape storms and fire disasters. Furthermore, conveys our deepest sympathy and heartfelt condolences to all families that have lost their loved ones during this period. We wish all those affected strength and comfort as they build their lives. I so move.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Beerwinkel.
Dankie, Deputy Speaker. Ek stel voor dat hierdie huis 'n leerder Lorenzo Tabo van Millersrus, een van die armste plaaskole in my gebied, wat gekies is om aan die Boland onder 13-15 taal vir die Nashua week te Sasolburg vanaf die 2de tot die 5de Julie gelukwens en hoop dat die keerders van die Kruiven weekspan sy talent ook sal raak sien en benut.
Geen beswaar teen die voorstel sonder kennis. Geen beswaar teen die voorstel self. Goedgekeur. Honourable Chacham.
That the House knows that the diabolic DA goes out of its way to hunt people that do not vote or agree with its instructions, as is the case in the lie detector test conducted in Mogale City, where successful no confidence motion saw the mayor removed. Further notes, it is the same DA that hires spies to look for dissidents in other municipalities, where the DA had to hand in their devices to find a link, and even Cape Town, where the DA members of sub-council were suspended for not voting as per the instruction, and notes that we saw something similar today, where a no confidence motion against the Premier was blocked. So much so for the DA that wants people to vote for with their conscience. The DA must really ask the chief whip of the DA to stop
Order, member,
people.
stick to your written script.
Yeah.
Any objection to the motion be moved without notice? There is no objection. Will be printed on the order paper. Are there any further on this side? None. That concludes the notices. Are there more? Sorry, Honourable Botha.
Chair, that this House notes and sends condolences to the family of Charles Levine from Citrusdal, who is a former councillor of the West Coast District Municipality. He passed away on May 28, 2017. I so move.
Any objection to that motion without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. So there no further. The Honourable Max, another one.
I compete.
Order.
Deputy Speaker, I competed earlier on. I was unsuccessful, to be acknowledged, but I knew I would get my opportunity. This House notes and congratulates Benny McCarthy on being appointed as head coach of Cape Town Football Club. Benny, who hails from Hanover Park on the Cape Flats, is still South Africa's leading goal scorer with 32 goals for Bafana Bafana. He is also the only South African who has won the biggest European footballing title of the Union of European Football Association Champions League with Porto in 2004. Benny is an aspiration and complete proof of what can be achieved if you work toward your goals and you score it.
Order. 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 I take it the applause means there's no objection to the motion without notice, and no objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Are there any further? Order. We then proceed. We're not done with the order paper yet. We proceed to the orders of the day. The Secretary will read the order of the day.
Budget Committee on Division of Revenue Bill, B4 2017 NCOP, is the ratification of final mandate.
Order. When the House could not sit these past few days, the Provincial Parliament received the report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill. This mandate was sent to the NCOP. If there's a need for some party to make a declaration of vote, they can do it now. Otherwise, we can continue. I don't see any hands. So, are there any objections to the ratification of the conferment of authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support the bill? No objections. Agreed to. That then brings us to the end of the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.